Lewin Ardell enters Ignite, and everyone immediately mistakes him for a magical genius. Once testing begins, his complete lack of genuine magical talent becomes painfully obvious. Students soon mock his failure and sneer at his impoverished family. When insults stop satisfying them, several bullies resort to physical violence. They fail to understand that Lewin never tolerates attacks against his family. The blonde bully finally crosses that boundary, earning a fist directly to his face. One brutal punch launches him backward and leaves everyone nearby stunned. Lewin calmly admits that magic fails him, but his fists still work. That's right, spellcasting may be hopeless, yet his knuckles remain perfectly reliable. Left speechless, the blonde bully desperately calls upon his brawny friend. The stronger student swings first, only to encounter another unpleasant surprise. Lewin slips past the punch and drives tremendous force into his stomach. The student previously mocked now stands alone, radiating confidence without any limit. Then the confrontation suddenly becomes far more dangerous than an ordinary fistfight. The blonde bully unleashes genuine magic, despite knowing it could kill someone. A combat instructor arrives exactly as the lethal electric spell strikes Lewin. He seemingly witnesses a student getting burned into a blackened human briquette, yet the actual outcome turns out nothing like that horrifying expectation. Inside a strange dream, Lewin faces an enormous and mysterious creature. The giant declares that Lewin is his reincarnation upon Earth. He names that former existence as Doom Prime, the mighty world eater. Opening his eyes, Lewin discovers a beautiful woman standing beside him. He assumes death carried him into paradise and left an angel nearby. The golden-haired healer quickly settles him and corrects that wild conclusion. She identifies herself as a prestigious healer inside the advanced recovery room. Still confused, Lewin remembers nothing except the bizarre dream he experienced. The golden-haired healer explains that he slept through an entire day. She suggests his lingering dizziness probably comes from that unusually long sleep. More astonishingly, not a single scratch remains anywhere across his body. Lewin truly carries no injury whatsoever, which she considers nothing short of miraculous. After all, direct exposure to electrical attack magic is extremely dangerous. Even Lewin cannot explain what actually protected him during that critical instant. The combat instructor soon enters the recovery room and begins questioning him. He reveals that both attackers have already been expelled from Ignite. Their punishment covers bullying and using combat magic beyond the designated field. Hearing this, Lewin admits that he also physically battered both students. He accepts partial responsibility instead of pretending innocence throughout the incident. Consequently, the instructor assigns him 1 month of mandatory volunteer service. Yet the combat instructor did not visit merely to explain disciplinary decisions. His true purpose is asking whether Lewin possesses a certain artifact. Naturally, Lewin neither owns such an item nor understands what artifacts are. The instructor persists because he witnessed red energy surrounding Lewin during impact. That protective phenomenon should only be possible through a legendary artifact. Lewin's genuine confusion eventually convinces him to abandon that particular suspicion. Left alone, Lewin recalls another detail from his unsettling dream. The giant creature mentions something called a status window during their encounter. As Lewin repeats those words, a glowing blue panel materializes before him. Right then, the golden-haired healer returns and catches his terrified reaction. Startled beyond measure, he asks whether she can also see the floating display. She warns that hallucinations would indicate a serious medical problem. Lewin immediately claims he was joking and denies seeing any luminous blue window. Since he otherwise appears healthy, she permits his return to the dormitory. That night, Lewin quietly visits Ignite's training field beneath the moonlight. Standing upon the grounds, he summons the mysterious status window once again. This time, the display contains an additional feature that was previously absent. A basic repeatable quest appears, accompanied by instructions explaining its requirements. Rolling up his sleeves, Lewin wonders how exercise could benefit any mage. He draws a deep breath while wrestling with his remaining hesitation. Finally, he disregards those doubts and decides to attempt the strange assignment. His first testing punch cuts through empty air with deliberate force. Another punch follows and the quest counter advances exactly as promised. A satisfied smile forms while he watches the displayed total steadily increase. Lewin launches another strike, but imperfect execution prevents this one from registering. Even the smallest technical mistake apparently fails the quest's strict conditions. Under moonlight and cool wind, he continues despite his growing exhaustion. Sweat drenches his body while heavy breaths tear repeatedly from his lungs. After a considerable struggle, Lewin finally completes every required movement. He raises his head wearing a small smile of hard-earned victory. While cleaning himself afterward, the window announces that he earned a reward. Before he fully understands it, something deep inside his body subtly changes. Lewin studies his arm as an unfamiliar sensation begins flowing through his veins. Although its nature remains mysterious, one conclusion feels absolutely undeniable. Somehow Lewin has become physically stronger than he was moments earlier. Curiosity wins, prompting him to test the reward through another airborne punch. This strike carries noticeably greater power and speed than anything he managed earlier. Even the surrounding air offers different resistance against his improved movement. A broad smile spreads across his face as every measurement shows improvement. Satisfied with those results, Lewin eagerly investigates the abilities he has unlocked. He calls forth the status window again, searching for a detailed explanation. The first unlocked ability bears the title Circle of Strength. His expression initially remains difficult to read as he studies that name. Soon, the deeper implications of this unfamiliar ability begin making sense. Its explanation starts with the unfinished words, practitioners of magic practitioners form mana circles around their hearts through depth and control. Lewin enters the world already carrying 4 extra mana circles beyond his peers. His unusual condition had made those additional circles effective. Now his newly gained ability has erased every familiar circle. Something entirely different spins where those circles once rested. The alien sensation leaves him frozen in sheer astonishment. His thoughts quickly turn toward what this transformation means for him. A grim possibility suggests his future as a mage may be over. Discouragement rises, yet he decides such conclusions remain far too early. To test himself, he invokes Fireball Magic, his lifelong greatest failure. The spell forms with astonishing speed, carrying far greater power than before. Alone in the deserted training yard, Lewin grasps an artifact's true potential. Ordinary evocation magic requires at least 10 seconds by its nature. This time, he creates the fireball while bypassing that delay entirely. He dismisses the flames, clenches his fist, and marvels at the artifact. During his distraction, a system window reveals another ability, Madness Mage. Its description says magic can be infused directly into his body parts. That method lets him overcome the same limitation that plagued him before. Deeply impressed, he wonders how anyone could devise such an impossible technique. Admiration must wait because the system immediately issues another quest. The task is straightforward. Measure these fresh abilities on a solid practice target. Lewin narrows his eyes, gathers his thoughts, and hardens his resolve. Bracing firmly, he launches a swift punch toward a nearby straw dummy. During the strike, he conjures a fireball and channels it through his fist. Satisfaction spreads across his face when the technique succeeds firsthand. Another completed quest promptly earns him a fresh reward. The accumulated strain soon sends him collapsing onto the training yard ground. Exhausted and emptied, he lies there after everything that happened. Rather than satisfaction, deep contemplation settles across his face. Now capable of releasing magic, Lewin wonders who Doom Prime truly is. Exhaustion eventually prevails, and sleep claims him without warning. Worried voices from nearby classmates finally rouse him. Lewin slowly opens his eyes and pushes himself upright. He appears unfazed by the fright he caused the worried students. Their questions meet his casual dismissal of sleeping inside the training yard. One skeptical classmate even asks whether he has been drinking. He answers that pure exhaustion alone made him fall asleep. Without another word, he leaves everyone sensing an unfamiliar change in him. Looking back, one student notices something alarming near the targets. A straw dummy lies utterly destroyed, with ashes scattered around it. Early that same day, Lewin returns to his dormitory room. Inside, he encounters Jason in the middle of brushing his teeth. Jason asks whether he spent the entire night somewhere else. Concern mixes with curiosity because Lewin rarely leaves Ignat. Suspecting a secret date, Jason starts teasing him about meeting a girl. Ignoring the jokes, Lewin throws his jacket at Jason and seeks a shower. Warm water finally washes away the lingering fatigue from his training. During this welcome rest, he examines the newly arrived quest. The repeatable assignment now doubles its target while keeping the same reward. Seeing no easy path, he sinks farther into the bathtub. Still, he accepts the challenge as part of becoming a mage. 1 month passes with Lewin completing quests every single day. He discovers that missing even one day resets all accumulated progress. Consequently, he trains without fail, even when leg day gets abandoned. Maintaining this daily regimen proves punishing, but the system shows some mercy. No training session ever demands more than 3,000 repetitions. Adjusting his stance, he prepares to finish another relentless workout. Dedication has sustained this unforgiving pace throughout the entire month. Along the way, his persistence has naturally secured several new rewards. Among them, Lewin now possesses the newly unlocked Body Arts ability. Time keeps passing, seemingly bringing little noticeable change to Lewin. His classmates disagree, whispering about his increasingly strange behavior. He simply sleeps peacefully while their lesson continues around him. Later, Lewin trades the classroom for Ignat's enormous library. Beyond physical training, he keeps searching for clues about Doom Prime. The investigation remains fruitless, producing nothing about the World Destroyer. Neither his status window nor his player title provides useful information. With every source exhausted, the frustrated student reaches a dead end. Even the system panel reveals nothing about the entity granting his power. A familiar voice interrupts his brooding by calling his name. Jason asks whether he has already heard the latest news. Visible disappointment follows when Lewin clearly remains unaware. In response, Lewin asks what major event could have occurred. Jason reveals that the head of House Ardell has arrived for a visit. His own father has come to see him, leaving Lewin utterly stunned. He refuses to waste another moment after hearing that startling revelation. Lewin bolts away, panting as he urgently calls for his father. He finds him calmly conversing with a welcoming professor. His father smiles warmly, clearly delighted that Lewin has arrived. They move somewhere private, giving the family room to reconnect. Lewin immediately asks whether his father remains healthy and happy. Next, he asks for an update about his younger sister. She still trains tirelessly with the sword entirely for his sake. Embarrassed by that news, Lewin can only chuckle awkwardly. His expression soon hardens as the conversation becomes more serious. Looking directly into his father's eyes, he firmly declares himself fine. The abrupt statement leaves his father slightly puzzled. Lewin quietly sips his tea while considering his next words. His father lowers his cup and explains today's true purpose. He came to determine whether Lewin is considering surrender. If academy life proves unbearable, Lewin can always return home. The same offer stands for troubles he cannot discuss openly. His father's solemn concern makes the reason painfully obvious. Lewin answers by making a grave promise about the upcoming test. He vows to produce outstanding results when examination day arrives. Failure will permit his father to determine his future freely. The long-awaited examination day finally arrives at Ignit. A professor strikes his baton, instantly commanding every student's attention. Anyone cheating during the introductory magic examination will immediately fail. Despite his nerves, Lewin begins the demanding assessment. The examination contains separate written and practical portions. Practical testing begins with shooting targets and measuring magical power. Live combat and individual duels complete the remaining categories. Despite his summoning disorder, Mikkel always dominates practical examinations. Lewin believes this attempt will produce an entirely different outcome. He confidently expects to seize first place for himself. Once the theoretical portion concludes, the practical trials finally commence. Jason calls out, pulling Lewin away from his thoughts. He notes Lewin's strange behavior and asks about today's strategy. Lewin says he intends to attempt a different approach. Curious, Jason immediately presses him for further details. Another voice interrupts, demanding to know why Lewin came. Mikkel approaches sneering and asks whether he actually plans to participate. Lewin fires back that his participation should be perfectly obvious. His blunt response causes Mikkel to burst into laughter. Mikkel places one hand heavily upon Lewin's shoulder. He offers advice from one six-time failure to another. Rather than suffer further humiliation, Lewin should surrender immediately. Wearing a mocking smile, Lewin calls that advice rather unhelpful. Mikkel insists someone with Lewin's disorder should never even try. Gritting his teeth, he promises to crush Lewin during their duel. The first practical assessment begins with shooting multiple targets. This trial counts how many targets one spell can strike. This year's version is harder because every target constantly moves. Participants step forward individually, yet struggle to land accurate hits. Consequently, the average scores remain shockingly low. Several students barely manage to strike 3 moving targets. The organizers lament such miserable performances from this year's graduates. They fear the graduating class possesses appallingly poor quality. One professor argues that disappointment remains far too premature. Mikkel's uncle announces his nephew's turn and demands close attention. Moving slowly, Mikkel enters the designated testing area. Blue flames gather around both hands as he channels magic. Those flames rapidly swell, revealing his intention to unleash something enormous. The examiner finally gives Mikkel permission to begin. He launches his magic directly toward the moving wooden targets. A single blast strikes numerous dummies, astonishing the watching crowd. Inside the organizer's room, his proud uncle requests everyone's opinion. Smiling broadly, he predicts Mikkel will represent the upcoming festival. A white-bearded elder sharply orders Mikkel's uncle to stop boasting. The elder believes they have already seen enough graduating students. The welcoming professor asks everyone to continue watching a little longer. Lewin is scheduled next, making his performance worth observing. Considering the student's remarkable passion, the elder agrees to remain. Lewin smiles confidently, seeing the perfect chance to test himself. Once commanded to start, he forms fire above his palm. Blazing heat immediately spreads throughout the surrounding testing grounds. The professors stare in amazement at Lewin's extraordinary casting speed. Every nearby student appears equally stunned by the spectacle. Mikkel merely smirks while addressing the classmates around him. He claims Lewin's evocation disorder makes hitting targets impossible. Mikkel continues calling him worthless and incapable of accomplishing anything. Lewin is already bending time and accelerating beyond ordinary limits. His temporal refraction ability grants unbelievable speed for 30 seconds. During that interval, he can reach any desired location. Lewin transforms into an overwhelming cyclone of surging fire. Flames and brilliant sparks consume the entire examination area. Above him, the professors and organizers follow every movement intently. The gathered students remain frozen in utter disbelief. Through explosive effort and absolute confidence, Lewin successfully executes his plan. All eyes settle upon the wooden targets amid the inferno. The scorched wooden targets finally shatter into countless pieces. A stunned judge announces Lewin has struck 27 targets. Disbelieving whispers ripple through the watching students around him. Loud applause erupts inside the organizer's observation room. Even Ignit's overseer rises and openly praises Lewin's performance. Several students soon join the celebration of his astonishing result. Burning with fury, Mikkel wonders how Lewin accomplished it. Cheers and recognition now surround Lewin, unlike anything he knew before. Their approval fills him with the warm satisfaction he always craved. A skeptical professor insists he has never seen anyone cast while striking targets. Another professor counters that magic offers possibilities without limits. If outcomes were predictable, he says, magic would merely become mathematics. The skeptic keeps protesting until Ignat's overseer raises one hand. He declares they witnessed a flawless magical miracle created by a student. Yet several professors clearly refuse to share that glowing assessment. Mikkel's uncle fumes, blaming Lewin for causing such enormous turmoil. Jason grabs Lewin's neck, shouting that the archmage is entering. Lewin's sudden popularity draws every curious student around him. Surrounded by attention, he finds this abrupt reversal deeply strange. Only yesterday, he lived as an isolated nobody without recognition. Everything changes overnight, though he knows many still dislike him. Inside his room, Lewin discovers Mikkel already waiting there. Wearing a hard expression, he demands to know why Mikkel entered. Mikkel says he came only to warn him against bragging over points earned without real magic. Lewin calmly asks whether he is simply acting like a sore loser. Enraged, the blonde boy seizes Lewin's collar with open hatred. Unruffled, Lewin merely closes one hand around his attacker's wrist. A strange sensation instantly jolts Mikkel, who stares at his hand. Unable to explain that strength, he wonders how this is possible. Stepping closer, Lewin offers to fight him privately, one against one. With a sharp tug, Mikkel pulls his hand free. He questions Lewin's qualifications after years of consistently poor scores. Holding his gaze, Lewin says Mikkel must wait and see. Leaving the room, Mikkel orders Lewin not to fail the next exam. He departs resentfully, certain Lewin will fail today's practical examination. Inside his pocket, the squeezed hand suddenly begins throbbing painfully. Examining it again, Mikkel wonders whether Lewin truly is a mage. Sparse clouds drift across the bright sky above the academy. Nearby boys exchange comments about an imposing stone statue. The second practical exam, magic power measurement, now begins. The famous stone ogre serves as its testing object. Each student must strike it with magic to receive a score. Lewin asks Jason whether they should use their most trusted magic. The statue, unfortunately, is notorious for awarding miserable results. A lightning boy unleashes a raging electrical storm against it. From the stone comes a sinister verdict awarding only 1 point. The cruel voice then advises him to abandon magic altogether. Next, a ponytailed girl approaches wearing a confident smile. Raising one hand slowly, she asks everyone to watch closely. She immediately fires a freezing spell straight into the statue. The ogre promises to remember such a genuinely impressive display. It finishes by calling her an utterly irredeemable piece of trash. Awarded only 2 points, the ponytailed girl bursts into tears. More participants receive dreadful scores alongside relentless, unnecessary insults. Jason starts arguing with the statue, ready to pick a fight. The judge sternly orders him back into his assigned place. Mikkel takes his turn next, focusing his unwavering gaze. Extending both hands, he launches concentrated magic toward the ogre. His attack crashes across several different sections of its body. The disappointed statue names Mikkel's father and asks about their relationship. Smiling proudly, Mikkel confirms he is his father's third son. The ogre calls his father an idiot who wept and begged for points. It sneers that Blondie possesses even less talent than his father. Despite that insult, the statue awards Mikkel 27 points. The judge calms Mikkel, then calls Lewin Ardell forward. Scowling anxiously, Lewin wonders why he suddenly feels so nervous. He clenches his fist, charges fire magic, and forces himself to focus. Prior to attacking, he politely introduces himself to the stone ogre. The statue says it recognizes his face, though that changes nothing. It dismissively tells the kid to continue with his examination. Spectators identify the gathered flames as a mana burst. Shocked voices recognize it as a 4th-class spell. Even the ogre seems surprised while studying Lewin's stance. Lewin suddenly leaps upward, gathering momentum for his attack. He lands beside the statue and prepares his concentrated firepower. Fully focused, he strikes the ogre with his foot first. The judge gapes as magic shifts from Lewin's fist into his foot. Lewin releases that transferred power in a single instant. Watching students understand their initial assessment was entirely wrong. His technique carries at least the force of 5th-class magic. Lewin finally lands upon the ground in perfect balance. Spectators now wonder whether Lewin is far stronger than anyone imagined. Yet Doom Prime's strange reaction leaves Lewin wondering what happened. The ogre merely asks, "Who exactly is that kid?" Lewin protests that he already introduced himself moments ago. Cutting him off, the statue asks whether he is the ancient being. Doom Prime explains that he has long awaited that individual. Who is this person Doom Prime mentioned? The watching students whisper. Lewin searched countless books recently, yet found nothing about that figure. Strangely, Doom Prime appears to know the mysterious individual extremely well. Puzzled, Lewin asks whether the ogre truly knows this person. The statue answers his question with a simple yes. Sweat forming, he asks Doom Prime to explain more about him. The ogre finds this unexpected situation remarkably intriguing. He never imagined finding the ancient being's incarnation inside Ignat. Doom Prime asks for the boy's name once again. After hearing it, he declares, "I will remember Lewin Ardell." The statue begins withdrawing while Lewin asks about his score. Doom Prime says the evaluation has already reached its conclusion. Lewin's unusual magic lies entirely beyond the ogre's ability to judge. The judge argues that their academy contract must still be honored. Those words fail to persuade Doom Prime in the slightest. Instead, the objection only succeeds in enraging the ogre. For years, he evaluated children who hardly resembled mages. He declares that Ignet and its rules can go to hell. Still, their contract compels him to provide an official score. To Lewin's astonishment, Doom Prime offers either 0 or 100. Smiling brightly, Lewin says 100 is obviously his preference. News of his perfect score soon spreads throughout the academy. Once again, Lewin has created another enormous disturbance at Ignet. The professor approaches after hearing about Lewin's unusual evaluation. He says the dean learned everything and prepared a reward. Then he places a small roll of paper into Lewin's hand. The paper contains only 2 words, "Artifact Room." Confused, Lewin asks what those mysterious words are supposed to mean. Rather than answering, the professor simply tells him to follow. Together, they enter darkness and descend a long staircase. The professor identifies this section as Ignet's sole forbidden area. That revelation makes Lewin even less certain about coming here. He cannot understand why anyone would bring him somewhere forbidden. Eventually, the professor stops beside a large sealed door. He identifies the chamber beyond as the Academy's artifact room. The professor also explains that he cannot proceed any farther. Growing nervous, Lewin asks whether he must enter alone. Since this opportunity is his reward, he chooses to continue. Beyond the door waits a colossal chamber packed with countless treasures. Every object inside seems to radiate immeasurable worth and power. Surveying everything, Lewin imagines the Academy Archmage's magical warehouse. A sudden voice pierces the silence and startles him. "You appear lost," Doom Prime remarks from somewhere inside the chamber. The ogre observes that Lewin seems unaware of his own value. Unlike earlier, Doom Prime no longer possesses a body of stone. He now stands before Lewin within his original ogre form. Doom Prime explains that only here may he use this body. Lewin asks what the comment about his value actually means. The ogre replies that his words mean exactly what they suggest. In truth, Lewin has no understanding of what he carries. He possesses the same artifact once wielded by that ancient being. Such a rare artifact has no equal anywhere else in existence. Doom Prime asks how Lewin obtained such an extraordinary object. He also demands to know Lewin's connection with its former owner. Lewin admits that these questions have been troubling him as well. Then he asks who that mysterious being truly was. A crimson gleam immediately flashes within Doom Prime's eyes. His intense gaze remains fixed directly upon Lewin's face. Doom Prime describes that being as someone who sought godhood. Long ago, the ambitious figure visited Doom Prime's ogre tribe. His overwhelming strength continued increasing with every passing day. Eventually, the entire tribe became incapable of defeating him. Rather than resisting further, the ogres came to respect him. The visitor then lived beside the monsters as their tribesman. Doom Prime served as that tribe's chief during those years. For nearly 100 years, the visitor taught him language and magic. This astonishing history leaves Lewin unable to hide his disbelief. No ordinary human could possibly survive for an entire century. Smiling, Doom Prime confirms that the visitor was never human. His actual identity was an ancient black dragon. Lewin stammers in disbelief, struggling to accept that dragons exist. He knows legends calling dragons the original source of magic. Until now, Lewin believed those stories were nothing but myths. Doom Prime reveals that the black dragon could not cast magic. Instead, he created a combat method resembling Lewin's own style. Magical energy flowed through the dragon's hands and feet during battle. Lewin understands that the dragon likely endured similar rejection long ago. Still, the dragon forged an ability that belonged solely to him. Nobody else could ever master his singular method of wielding magic. Through that power, he surpassed every other being in the world. Even absolute superiority failed to satisfy the increasingly driven dragon. He kept pursuing greater strength far beyond every reasonable limit. Ultimately, his power destroyed everything around him and consumed him too. Fear seizes Lewin as the scattered pieces finally connect. He now understands why the dragon became known as the World Destroyer. Suddenly, Lewin's status screen flashes and presents several new abilities. His new gifts include ogre speech and a skill-enhancing power. A glowing orb called Strang now pulses within Lewin's grasp. It feels like power given form, leaving him baffled by its nature. Doom Prime calls Strang a quest reward and asks to inspect it. After studying the orb, Doom Prime confirms Strang is no ordinary item. He identifies it instead as an incarnation given physical form. Lewin grips it firmly, though its purpose still escapes him. Given its condition, the dragon sealed Strang inside the Spirit Stone upon dying. This foul-tempered spirit promises infinite power if Lewin satisfies its desires. In other words, an incarnation is destined to emerge from the orb. Without warning, the stone glows, fractures, and bursts into glittering pieces. A tiny brown bear cub appears, fitting neatly within Lewin's palm. Rubbing its sleepy eyes, the creature grumbles about being called a bear. Lewin cannot understand how any bear could speak his language. Pointing an adorable paw, the furious cub orders him to stop. He remains speechless beneath the little creature's angry complaints. Planting both paws on its hips, Strang insists it is no bear. Puzzled, Lewin finally asks what the creature actually is. Strang calls itself an incarnation capable of becoming anything it desires. Wearing a defiant expression, it promises to demonstrate its power. Lewin watches with widened eyes, eagerly awaiting the transformation. Strange strains with tremendous intensity, yet its tiny body remains unchanged. Utterly baffled, the creature wonders where all its power disappeared. It blames reincarnating hungry, then immediately demands something to eat. Lewin admits he has nothing, drawing another irritated grumble. Strange complains that its newest master is painfully weak. Abandoning its request, the cub lies down and asks for dinner later. Doom Prime remarks that Strang's personality remains unchanged after countless years. Watching Lewin beside Strang revives Doom Prime's memories of ancient days. In his old hometown, he once confronted Strang and the dragon together. Doom Prime then asks what Lewin intends to accomplish with his power. It will make him stronger, but Doom Prime questions what follows. Lewin remembers yearning for enough strength to protect everyone from demons. He also wants to restore Ardell and face those who mocked him. With so much worth protecting, he cannot abandon this opportunity. Lewin declares he will follow his own resolve for everyone, and himself. His chosen path serves his people, his family, and his own future. Doom Prime approves and says he eagerly awaits the future Lewin creates. Following that revelation, one major change reshapes Lewin's ordinary routine. Strange now accompanies him everywhere as his demanding little companion. Food makes Strang salivate instantly, while its eyes sparkle with hunger. Feeding the little bear soon becomes another task in Lewin's daily routine. He charges fire magic, while Strang opens its mouth impossibly wide. No matter the quantity, the tiny incarnation always devours enormous portions. Afterward, it rubs a paw along its neck, radiating total satisfaction. The meals Lewin provides are raw power earned through completed missions. Strange's special ability dramatically accelerates Lewin's growth and proves invaluable. As Strange evolves, the extra power flowing into Lewin rises explosively. Once Strain reaches 31 stars, Lewin will possess 3,100 strength. Even below 1,000 strength, he already feels an overwhelming surge. Hungry for faster progress, Lewin asks how the dragon became immensely powerful. Strange answers with a deliberately provocative smirk across its tiny face. It offers the secret only if the hero fetches water. Lewin's icy glare instantly wipes away the cub's smug confidence. He says the bear can remain silent if it prefers starvation. Countless other routes toward greater strength still remain available. He could pursue harsher missions, craft empowering equipment, or uncover ancient artifacts. Even boiled ogre tendon could become an exceptionally potent strengthening elixir. Every method remains unreachable, since each demands at least 1,000 strength. Despite his remarkable gains, Lewin understands he has barely begun climbing. He trains without mercy each day until his strength reaches 930. The third Royal Combat exam begins at that long-awaited milestone. Lewin has eagerly anticipated this particular examination for quite some time. Its main purpose is evaluating how effectively mages manage dangerous situations. Jason begins his attempt by launching a fiercely blazing fireball. One careless mistake nearly burns his allied knights alive. That dangerous failure earns Jason an immediate disqualification from the exam. Assigned knights participate to protect students and evaluate their teamwork. The examination lasts 10 grueling days and presents monsters matching individual scores. Those punishing days feel like weeks as the final trial arrives. Excitement crackles through everyone while they await the last monstrous challenge. A deafening roar erupts as a hulking orc storms forward. The beast bellows savagely, every movement flexing its powerful muscles. Orcs are aggressive creatures, larger than humans, yet comparably intelligent. Their violent kind can be found throughout every corner of the continent. Terror grips the students as one chilling possibility enters their minds. They wonder whether an orc attack might actually kill someone. The professor steps forward and his steady presence calms the panic. During the test, the hateful orc suddenly charges its opponents. Frontline shield bearers brace themselves and deflect its brutal attacks. Mikkel, currently undergoing examination, begins gathering magic for a counterattack. Extending both arms, he fires a sharply formed ice arrow. The orc displays shocking agility and swiftly evades the projectile. It instantly closes the gap, charging straight toward the blonde student. The raging creature bears down on Mikkel, fully prepared to strike. The professor screams desperately, ordering his student to dodge immediately. Mikkel knows he must retaliate, but the moment hangs unresolved. Terror locks Mikkel in place, and his body refuses every command. The tree professor intervenes, casting a powerful wooden prison spell. Heavy vines burst upward, catching the orc seconds from crushing Mikkel. They clamp around the beast, even winding tightly across its massive neck. Despite its restraints, the monster thrashes wildly and reaches toward him. Mikkel crumples onto the ground, his entire body shaking uncontrollably. Just like Jason, he is immediately disqualified from the examination. Mikkel's uncle pounds the table, barely containing his furious disappointment. After his nephew's repeated failures, he decides Lewin's test requires interference. The sly professor asks the dean whether this examination should continue. Raising one eyebrow, the dean reminds him that Lewin goes next. Behind a false smile, the sly professor says that is precisely concerning. Lewin alone accomplished his objective and earned perfection on the previous test. Testing everyone else under identical conditions now seems deeply unfair. The dean accepts his reasoning but has no different monsters prepared. Smiling knowingly, the sly professor reveals that he has another option. Alongside the orcs, the escort knights also captured a formidable ogre. An ogre examination would obviously place any student in extraordinary danger. Still, the tree professor and escort knights could create quite a spectacle. Such a challenge would finally expose the true extent of Lewin's abilities. The halls of Ignat fall silent as the tree professor waits nearby. He leans against a wall until Lewin approaches through the empty corridor. Lewin looks startled upon discovering his professor waiting there for him. The professor warns that today's challenge surpasses every other student's test. Ignat expects astonishing results, while some consider equal testing unfair. Pressing him for specifics, Lewin asks how much harder things became. The tree professor finally reveals that his opponent will be an ogre. Hearing that no orc awaits him, Lewin cannot conceal his shock. Thick, overlapping chains restrain one of the monster's enormous hands. Its sword bucks violently while the ogre strains against every binding. Around it, the escort knights tighten their grips and ready their weapons. Even their captain opposes using an ogre for any student's examination. One strike could crush a skull or tear out someone's spine. Lewin turns toward his professor and asks whether this is truly happening. The tree professor answers simply, saying these orders came from the dean. Disgusted, the captain mutters that people are gambling their lives for tests. Lewin understands perfectly that his own life now hangs in the balance. When he approaches the captain, the tense knight demands his identity. Lewin introduces himself as the student scheduled to take this examination. After studying him closely, the captain becomes even more visibly agitated. He cannot believe someone so young must confront a monstrous ogre. The professor and knights will protect him, yet Lewin walks elsewhere. The captain shouts that he is heading in the wrong direction. Lewin should remain safely behind the knights, nowhere near their front line. Instead, he declares that he intends to fight from the very front. He explains that his magical techniques are nothing like ordinary spells. The captain argues that nobody could protect him from such a position. He angrily asks why Lewin seems determined to throw away his life. With unwavering confidence, Lewin removes his cloak and flings it behind him. Still advancing, he offers one blunt explanation. I'm desperate. Strangely, the captain senses absolutely no fear coming from the young man. The tree professor approaches and orders Lewin to prepare himself immediately. With the examination about to start, the professor snaps his fingers. The heavy chains around the ogre's arms instantly spring apart. A piercing roar shakes the grounds as the newly freed monster attacks. Leaving every soldier behind, Lewin recklessly charges straight toward the ogre. The captain screams after him, demanding that the reckless student stop. Ignoring every warning, Lewin continues closing the distance without hesitation. The ogre draws back its arm, building force for a catastrophic strike. Lewin answers by launching a fireball directly into the creature's body. Their fists meet violently, and the resulting flash illuminates everything nearby. Flames scatter across the battlefield while the soldiers watch in helpless disbelief. The captain recognizes that Lewin chose a dangerously short-ranged magical attack. From nearby, the tree professor studies the entire collision with grave focus. Every observing student feels the battle's brutal shockwave pass through them. The sly professor and dean also stare at the clash in astonishment. No student should willingly enter close combat against an ogre. Yet when the dust thins, Lewin remains upright within the scorched ground. The captain can scarcely accept that the young man survived the collision. Watching him endure, the tree professor allows himself a pleased smirk. The captain grips Lewin's shoulder, calls his name, and sternly reprimands him. He insists Lewin should have explained such a reckless plan beforehand. Calmly apologizing, Lewin immediately asks the captain for his assistance. He then asks, "Would you have allowed me through after hearing it?" Without awaiting an answer, Lewin says there is no time left. He insists they must concentrate on bringing the examination to its conclusion. Across from them, the ogre remains standing and snorts with murderous fury. The captain orders Lewin to remain behind him from this point onward. He acknowledges Lewin's strength, but stresses that the danger remains extreme. Their safest option is staying put while the captain handles everything. Despite those instructions, Lewin slowly begins walking toward the ogre again. Defying the captain's direct orders, he firmly holds his ground at the front. At the front line, Lewin's expression hardens with absolute resolve. "This exam belongs to me, so let me finish it," he declares. 5 times larger than Lewin, the ogre glares down and snorts. He advances without fear, driven by 2 powerful reasons. First, his unique gift lets him understand and communicate with ogres. Through that connection, he hears the surrounded monster screaming in terror. Mages and knights encircle it, making its desperate fear perfectly understandable. His second reason comes from the mission assigned to him. He must attack first, then defeat the enemy before him. Completing it awards 30 additional points to his strength. Lewin knows repeating this mission daily would bring tremendous long-term gains. With such rewards awaiting him, hesitation no longer makes any sense. Their earlier collision of fists had illuminated the entire army. That exchange already showed the ogre how powerful its opponent truly was. Flames and crushing heat now fill the entire room around them. By landing the opening strike, Lewin completes the mission's first objective, yet the battle remains far from finished. He hears the ogre roar that it will kill him. Leaping forward, the monster gathers momentum and barrels straight toward him. Lewin stands beyond the captain, who can barely protect him now. The charging ogre bellows that it will crush his skull. Its fist smashes into the ground, but Lewin narrowly evades it. While the beast keeps advancing, he searches carefully for vulnerable points. To expose an opening, Lewin activates his temporal refraction ability. The captain stares in disbelief at the astonishing speed Lewin displays. He knows closing the distance immediately is his only viable option. Approaching from the perfect angle, Lewin finally spots a clear opening. That gap offers a direct path toward the ogre's vulnerable spot. Watching knights stand speechless before the courage shown in this duel. The students also watch closely, sensing something unusual about Lewin. Despite his relentless offense, the ogre launches a fierce counterattack. It winds up its enormous arm and punches with everything it has. Lewin blocks with his knee, redirecting the massive fist away. Even then, the ogre catches his other leg without difficulty. With one effortless swing, it hurls him violently across the room. Flying backward, Lewin twists his body and fights to recover balance. He braces against a nearby wall while still tumbling through the air. Something unexpected catches him off guard immediately after he lands. The ogre gives him no pause and unleashes another devastating punch. Its fist pulverizes the wall that had stood directly behind Lewin. Still remarkably agile, he dodges and suddenly appears behind the beast. The ogre snarls furiously, calling him a cursed little rat. Without pausing, Lewin adjusts his stance and begins another assault. His precise strike crashes directly into the monster's face. The enormous creature slams down with an impact that shakes everything nearby. Lewin leaps onto the fallen ogre and stands firmly upon its chest. He boosts his strength through an ability, preparing the finishing attack. It ends now, Lewin declares while towering over his defeated opponent. Startled by his power, the ogre asks whether Lewin is truly human. Lewin coolly asks whether the monster genuinely expects him to answer. Although they understand each other perfectly, he has no interest in conversation. Instead, Lewin unleashes his explosive flame mana attack at point-blank range. Accumulated ogre fury simultaneously shifts his condition into an enraged state. A colossal eruption bursts from the ogre's body, flooding everything with heat. When the inferno settles, the monster's eyes appear empty and lifeless. Lewin studies the unmoving body, wondering whether the fight has truly ended. Strange watches closely and admits Lewin exceeded every expectation he had. Uncertain whispers spread as spectators question whether the ogre is actually defeated. Then every student erupts into euphoric cheers, celebrating Lewin's victory. Irene, in contrast, watches with stunned and frustrated disbelief. Even Ignat seems to wear a faint smile as the spectacle concludes. Lewin has defeated the terrifying ogre entirely through his own strength. The captain approaches and demands the identity of Lewin's physical instructor. He also wants to know who taught him that powerful spell. Learning everything alone seems impossible for someone so young. Meeting his stare firmly, Lewin insists he taught himself every technique. The professor steps nearer, giving Lewin an opportunity to ask about grading. Lewin immediately asks whether his performance means he passed the exam. For several moments, the professor remains silent and lost in thought. He honestly admits never believing Lewin could accomplish something this extraordinary. Yet once again, Lewin has destroyed every expectation placed upon him. The professor finally confirms that Lewin has successfully passed the test. A confident smile spreads across his face after hearing the verdict. Completing both test and mission unlocks a new skill called Player's Eye. Strange explains that Lewin is finally becoming a genuine player. He recognizes Player's Eye as something only a true player can possess. The skill reveals people concealed through either stealth or invisibility. It also unlocks a minimap centered around Lewin's current position. He can now observe everything within a 500-meter radius. Player's Eye also allows him to inspect a chosen target status. The stream of surprising new functions still does not end there. Strange instructs Lewin to face the ogre and activate his new skill. Following those directions, he focuses Player's Eye upon the fallen monster. A status window instantly appears before him with the target's crucial information. Lewin next attempts to examine the professor through the same interface. This time, the skill fails to reveal any useful information. Its current limits block targets whose levels greatly surpass Lewin's own. As he grows stronger, the amount of accessible information will increase. Lewin smiles slightly, already sensing the significance of that expanding access. This ability could become an extraordinarily useful tool. Once the exam ends, stories of Lewin defeating an ogre spread rapidly. Jason asks Lewin how all this sudden attention feels. A young woman interrupts the friends by approaching them. In a sweet voice, she asks whether he is Senior Lewin. Several other girls follow, bearing snacks and wrapped presents. After delivering everything, they hurry away with reddened cheeks. Ignoring the pile, Lewin offers every gift to Jason instead. Jason's eyes blaze and he condemns the gesture as deeply disrespectful. While Jason whines, Lewin quietly opens his friend's status information. The display reveals that Jason possesses remarkably high potential. For several days, studying everyone's attributes has occupied most of Lewin's time. Abruptly changing topics, he urges Jason to apply himself more seriously. His abilities are excellent, Lewin explains, but his confidence needs strengthening. Fired up, Jason vows to enter the next exam's top 10. Yet he admits that certain things remain difficult to believe. For 6 years, Lewin seemed one way, but now feels entirely different. Lewin glances upward, perfectly understanding what his friend means. Deep down, he also feels like a different person. Adding to that unease, strange rumors have recently surrounded him. Those whispers predict Lewin will surpass Muckle as Ignat's speaker and representative. Lewin cuts him off by standing and declares that he does not care. To Jason, though, the issue carries far greater importance. This particular year marks the arrival of the Grand Festival. During every 5th month, representatives from different academies gather to compete. Once every 8 years, an Olympiad unites all mages seeking supremacy. When those two events overlap, everyone calls it the Grand Festival. This convergence showcases elite students from the most prestigious academies. Its champion receives money and extraordinary privileges, fueling brutal competition. Across Ignat, students eagerly speculate about who will represent them this year. Over dinner, Jason confidently insists that Lewin will certainly represent Ignat. After all, only he earned a perfect 100 against the ogre. Everyone still remembers Mikkel's showing during the previous festival. He performed miserably, placing 4th among 5 individual competitors. That dead last finish saddled Ignat with a humiliating bottom-ranked nickname. Only Lewin can erase that shame, according to the gathered students. Lewin cautions them that unfinished exams make such confidence premature. Festival selection ultimately depends upon test scores and teacher recommendations. His approaching one-on-one test with Mikkel demands his undivided concentration. 4 days have now passed since the combat test. Lewin trains relentlessly inside the arena and achieves a remarkable breakthrough. His strength finally reaches exactly 1,000 points. Strang grows ecstatic and asks whether leveling up comes next. While Lewin prepares, a new notification panel abruptly appears. It announces that the repetition quest has advanced to level 2. Strang springs onto his shoulder, blazing with concentrated fiery energy. The upgraded repetitions are twice as intense, while rewards become threefold. Strang then draws the surrounding magical energy into himself. Lewin feels that gathered force flood every part of his body. Its tremendous glow illuminates the entire area, astonishing even him. He watches the flames around Strang grow increasingly fierce. Stunned, Lewin wonders what this incredible transformation might signify. The professor sits alone, absorbed in increasingly troubled thoughts. A vision of Lewin obliterating the ogre repeatedly crosses his mind. He considers whether Lewin could defeat Mikkel, though victory still seems improbable. Such an outcome would make Lewin Ignat's highest-ranked student. To the professor, that possibility is utterly unacceptable. Mikkel's family must continue standing at the Academy's summit. Once Lewin absorbs Strang's magical power, the bear reaches rank 2. The achievement grants Lewin another 200 points of strength. Approaching Strang, he comments on how dramatically the bear has evolved. Because of that growth, his strength rapidly climbs to 1200. Smirking proudly, Strang notes that quest difficulty and rewards rose together. A review of the notifications confirms Strang's claim. Lewin already trains on advanced difficulty, so this poses little trouble. One uncertainty remains, prompting him to ask what real combat training means. Strang recalls promising during their first meeting that he could become anything. From now onward, he can assume any desired shape within certain limits. Upon reaching rank 5, Strang can even adopt a human body. Wearing a sly grin, he offers Lewin a transformation demonstration. Strang's small body immediately begins warping into another shape. A spiraling vortex engulfs the creature's once tiny, delicate frame. As the vortex swells, a terrifying scarecrow replaces the little bear. Unimpressed, Lewin remarks that this differs from what he expected. The scarecrow lunges, warning Lewin that underestimating him would be foolish. Strange adds that this form once proved highly useful during earlier training. From now on, he will serve as Lewin's quest training dummy. That arrangement requires them to practice combat together every single day. At his current evolution, Strange only matches a 3rd-class mage. Once fully restored though, his potential will have no apparent limits. At Lewin's request, he could even become a dragon or demon. Lewin asks to begin immediately, with Strang assuming his mage form. His eyes gleam brightly as he chuckles and accepts the request. A sphere of energy materializes within one raised paw. The glowing sphere rapidly reshapes itself into a magical staff. His spells can only push Lewin, leaving both of them unharmed. This makes Strang an ideal partner for dangerous combat practice. Concentrated energy starts gathering around the newly formed staff. Strang warns Lewin that his first attack is coming now. Training begins as he launches a spell across the practice area. Lewin swiftly slips aside, avoiding the incoming magical blast. He suspects Mikkel is probably training just as intensely elsewhere. That thought makes him impatient for the approaching test day. Mikkel complains to his uncle that Lewin keeps fueling his anger. He demands to know what he can possibly do now. The complaint only makes the stern professor even more irritated. He snaps that Mikkel should be the one working harder. Mikkel says rumors accuse his uncle of inflating Lewin's grades. They also claim the ogre test was entirely his uncle's idea. Thanks to that decision, Lewin secured the highest possible score. That outcome could prove disastrous if Mikkel's family ever learns. Gritting his teeth, the stern professor asks whether this is blackmail. Mikkel dismisses that accusation and demands help finding a solution. If Lewin represents Ignat at the festival, everything will be lost. The stern professor considers this, then produces a tiny vial. Mikkel recognizes its contents as the awakening herb, or blazing flower. This medicinal plant grows throughout the distant northern lands. Some people use the rare herb when creating exceptionally powerful elixirs. Consuming it drastically lowers the amount of mana required. Unfortunately, it also leaves its user almost insensitive to pain. The user may also struggle to distinguish allies from enemies. His uncle seems impressed that Mikkel actually remembers these lessons. Uneasy, Mikkel asks whether he is expected to consume the elixir. The stern professor confirms that this remains their only option. Mikkel must restore his family's honor after losing the previous test. Still hesitant, he warns that the examiner already knows his limits. Any sudden increase in his abilities could attract immediate attention. Smiling confidently, his uncle reveals that every anti-doping screening is his responsibility. He then provides another potion capable of concealing any evidence. Mikkel must drink that vial after consuming the blazing flower. His uncle insists there is nothing for either of them to fear. After all, they belong to the same family and share its ambitions. According to him, this underhanded method is simply how they advance. Sounding persuasive, he again asks Mikkel to accept the proposed plan. At last, the solo duel examination day rolls around. Everyone gathers inside the mana barrier room for the annual event. As usual, the venue is packed tightly with excited spectators. The anticipated final battle between Mikkel and Lewin is about to begin. Both adversaries approach the arena from their respective sides. Feeling slightly anxious, Lewin knows the decisive moment has arrived. Straying notes, Mikkel probably expects Lewin to favor close-range combat. He may have prepared specifically to counter that fighting strategy. Yet reaching striking distance means Lewin needs only one punch. Various terrain features fill the arena to imitate genuine battlefield conditions. The stern professor stands beside them and asks if they are ready. Lewin fixes Mikkel with a steady, unwavering stare. Analyzing him coldly, he notices an immediate inconsistency. Mikkel clearly is not behaving like his normal self. His usual arrogance is absent, and something feels deeply unnatural. Lewin activates his player's gaze ability to inspect Mikkel's status. The display reveals double magic casting and an active berserk mode. He has never encountered such a strange condition before. Lewin senses another concealed effect beneath the visible status information. A drug may be camouflaging whatever the display refuses to reveal. Although checks occurred beforehand, the stern professor controlled every inspection. That connection immediately turns Lewin's concern into serious suspicion. Stepping forward, the stern professor explains that only dark magic is prohibited. Their scores depend on the power of spells that successfully land. Nobody needs protection because magical effectiveness here is reduced by 99%. Lewin raises one hand, asking what happens to illegal potion users. The stern professor says offenders face immediate disqualification and formal examination. That review determines whether the offender should be expelled from Ignat. He then asks Lewin why such a question matters. Turning his face aside, Lewin quietly mutters that it means nothing. The judge spreads his arms and orders both students into position. Only Lewin can view statuses, so nobody would believe his accusation. He needs to uncover firm evidence proving that Mikkel cheated. The two opponents glare fiercely while the stern professor waits. Finally, the decisive command comes from the stern professor. At the signal, both boys rush forward, and combat begins. Hatred blazing in his eyes, Mikkel forms an emerald spell in his palm. As he leaps, enchanted roots burst upward and snare Lewin's feet. Lewin tears free effortlessly, leaving the entire audience stunned. The mana barrier weakens spells, yet cannot reduce his natural strength. Mikkel shouts, "Did you truly think that was everything?" while conjuring a magical skull. The skull blasts a stream of fire directly toward Lewin. He dodges, recovers his balance, and notices a rock along his escape route. Darting behind it, he remains untouched by the surging flames. While peeking out, Lewin deduces that Mikkel swallowed a special potion. It shortens casting time, while greatly increasing the drinker's mana. Wearing a deranged expression, Mikkel screams for him to leave cover. That frantic agitation tells Lewin exactly which potion was taken. It must be the awakening herb known as flaming flower. Every symptom his opponent displays matches that substance perfectly. Only its power to suppress pain still needs confirmation. Lewin leaves the rock and announces that Mikkel's confidence now makes sense. Flaming Flower made you bold, but I need nothing similar to beat you. Assuming a combat stance, he declares, now I use everything. He charges Mikkel and activates his time refraction ability. Mikkel gathers ice magic, but Lewin moves too quickly to track. Desperate, he raises an ice barrier between himself and the incoming attacker. The frozen defense proves far too weak to halt Lewin. With a blazing kick, he smashes directly through the barrier. Every watching professor marvels at the force displayed. Mikkel desperately summons an enormous fire-breathing lizard and sends it charging. Lewin answers by gathering his earthquake ability inside one fist. His punch crashes downward, unleashing a seismic blast across the ground. That single shock instantly destroys the enormous fiery lizard. Spectating students gape as earth magic fully neutralizes a fire attack. Terror overwhelms Mikkel, who screams without knowing his next move. Then he notices Lewin has already closed the distance. Panicking, he yells repeatedly and begs Lewin to stay away. Lewin smirks sarcastically and says, "Stop cowering and take this." His fingers pause only inches from Mikkel's terrified face. One tiny flick triggers a thunderous boom heard beyond the Colosseum. That effortless strike hurls Mikkel away, leaving every spectator speechless. A towering dust cloud erupts where his body impacts. Lewin watches the aftermath of his attack with icy calm. Smashed against a rock, Mikkel slowly rises, grinning about being underestimated. Lewin refuses him time to finish that boast. Closing in, he plants another accurate punch squarely into Mikkel's face. The blow launches him backward again, slamming his back against stone. Despite those vicious impacts, Mikkel begins laughing uncontrollably. He taunts, "Your punches are weak and they cannot hurt me." Still laughing, he adds, "These impacts might actually kill me." Lewin places one hand on his shoulder and warns against continuing. Taking the test any further under these conditions is dangerous. Activating his tree of imprisonment, he summons roots around Mikkel's body. The tangled growth binds Mikkel tightly and leaves him immobilized. Lewin raises an arm and accuses him of taking a forbidden drug. The judge steps closer and challenges Lewin's certainty. A mistaken accusation, he warns, could immediately disqualify Lewin. Lewin answers, "I am entirely certain about this. Some manufacturers can create substances that ordinary testing cannot detect." The worried professor struggles to understand what Lewin means. Lewin explains that producing it requires someone handling rare materials. That same person also administered the screening prior to combat. Within the academy, only one individual satisfies both requirements. The other professors begin staring suspiciously at the worried professor. He steps closer and demands, "What exactly are you implying, Lewin?" Then he asks, "Are you claiming Mikkel doped while I ignored it?" Lewin replies that he possesses proof supporting the charge. The professor proposes repeating the academy's anti-doping examination. Lewin reveals that an elixir concealed the substance from testing. The professor then asks what course of action Lewin recommends. Lewin rests his hand against the trunk restraining Mikkel. He declares that everyone will see the evidence firsthand. Using only one hand's fingers, he strikes and shatters the tree. Lewin explains that Mikkel's forehead received that identical flick earlier. Mikkel's magic was abnormally high, yet he kept laughing and standing afterward. That strike should have left him unconscious on the spot. Even while restrained, Mikkel continues laughing as though pain cannot reach him. Lewin asks whether the professor can still deny everything after this evidence. The dean's scream shakes the entire Ignite arena as he summons the professor. Rage possesses the dean and his fury shows from afar. He roars, demanding how the professor could commit such an act. The dean orders the accused man to accompany him into his office. The accused professor is plainly facing extremely serious trouble. The accused professor knows there is no escaping punishment now. Across the arena, Mikkel keeps laughing while roots hold him captive. Following the chaos, the fourth test comes to an abrupt end. The professor and his nephew are both expelled from Ignite. Every corrupt act committed by Mikkel's family is also exposed. Students soon declare Lewin's new nickname is the General Expeller. Summoned by the dean, Lewin approaches a colossal door. Peculiar energy streams through his body while he waits outside. Entering the room, he encounters a sight that leaves him astonished. Instead of an office, an open field spreads before his eyes. It resembles Ardell territory, a place intimately familiar to him. Closer inspection reveals subtle differences throughout this recreated landscape. A throne stands ahead, normally reserved for the Mage King. Lewin wonders why such an object has appeared here. The dean emerges behind him and asks what Lewin sees. He explains Doom Prime's eye independently created this entire space. Its owner led the demons and launched the continent's first invasion. The eye forces its targets to experience their deepest desires as visions. Thus, Lewin's world mirrors his innermost wishes more closely than anything. He recognizes two ambitions driving the landscape around him. One is restoring Ardell territory, while the other is unrivaled magical supremacy. The dean asks whether Lewin wonders what vision he witnessed. His vision shows students behaving properly and mages fulfilling their roles. With a sigh, he admits creating that world would be difficult. A door slowly groans open, marking their route from the space. Lewin takes one final look around before departing. He sees himself celebrating victory, trophy raised among cheering friends. Another vision places him in graduation robes, finally finishing his Ignite studies. Those promised futures bring a warm smile across his face. Back inside the dean's office, Lewin accepts an offered cup of tea. The dean watches quietly while the student drinks. Then he reveals one question motivated this private summons. He asks how Lewin detected Mikkel's blazing flower and other stimulants. Lewin swallows nervously, uncertain how much truth he should reveal. He says Mikkel's aura felt distinctively wrong from the beginning. Aggressive behavior and abnormal mana circulation further supported his conclusion. The dean notices Lewin sounds certain rather than merely suspicious. Lewin decides revealing his true ability is unnecessary. Instead, he explains that he relied on physical strength, not magic. After all, the arena restrictions suppressed only magical abilities. Despite repeated physical blows, Mikkel merely laughed without showing pain. Only the blazing flower could reasonably explain such behavior. The dean considers Lewin remarkably perceptive and talented for his age. As Ignat's dean, he deeply regrets everything that happened. He promises Mikkel's family will never trouble Lewin again. The dean also presents the young student with an offer. Would Lewin represent Ignat at the Grand Festival during the 7th month? The proposal leaves him reeling, because every student covets that position. Lewin closes his eyes, struggling to contain the emotions surging inside. First, he thanks the dean for granting him such extraordinary honor, yet Lewin openly admits he possesses no meaningful battle experience. He has not fought a single real battle during the past 5 years. His mana disorder also rendered those recent years largely unproductive. Given those setbacks, he doubts his strength suits such a grand festival. In the dean's view, none of those concerns create a genuine problem. Quite the opposite. Lewin could seriously contend for overall victory. His potential might seem frightening, but the dean expresses complete confidence. He believes Lewin already possesses everything needed to succeed. An unknown secret weapon appearing without warning perfectly describes him. Competitors possess no information about Lewin or his preferred strategies. They also have no idea which counters might stop him. Lewin reflects that his rivals truly understand nothing about him. Mikkel, by contrast, has spent years standing in the spotlight. Once more, the dean asks whether Lewin accepts this formidable challenge. Lewin answers firmly, promising his utmost effort to repay that trust. During their conversation, someone knocks, and the dean invites the visitor inside. He explains body art classes would benefit Lewin more than magical lessons. For that reason, he has invited a new professor. Lewin appears to recognize the man entering the office. Bulwer remarks that Lewin hardly seems pleased to see him. He commands renowned troops and ranks among the kingdom's only ranked 6 knights. This same knight fought beside Lewin against an ogre during the 3rd exam. Before their lessons begin, he needs several details confirmed. A professor reported that Lewin is a mage forced into close combat. Lewin silently confirms that description with a nod. From their previous battle, Bolvar remembers his concise economical movements. None of Lewin's actions seemed wasteful or unnecessarily elaborate. Still, Bolvar says one glaring fact about Lewin is already obvious. Lewin has never properly studied martial arts, confirming Bolvar's blunt assessment. Those movements might defeat an ogre, but any trained knight could predict them. He knows Bolvar is right because his attacks follow repetitive patterns. Still, Bolvar promises training can carry him far beyond those basics. Eager to improve, Lewin asks whether they can begin immediately. Bolvar explains that a knight's most important foundation lies within his feet. Lewin must first walk correctly before mastering proper body techniques. Celestial martial arts are commonly taught to knights at training centers. Lewin sweeps one arm forward, releasing a fierce blast of wind. Without counting swordsmanship, the discipline contains exactly 36 different movements. Gathering momentum, he surges ahead and tests another newly learned strike. Punches and kicks pour outward while his advancing body gathers speed. Bolvar watches silently, arms crossed and an amused smile on his face. That unexplained expression leaves Lewin curious about his teacher's true intentions. He asks why Bolvar offers instruction without receiving any obvious personal reward. Bolvar calmly answers that teaching him is simply an investment. Helping a potential great mage develop seems extraordinarily worthwhile to him. Grateful for that faith, Lewin bows and promises to follow his guidance. Bolvar finds such stiff manners exhausting and says, "Just call me Hyung." Training continues as Lewin hammers the empty air with countless punches. His body becomes a blur while every repeated strike grows sharper. Bolvar observes his remarkable progress and remains impressed by his raw courage. He remembers inspecting the ogre's corpse and finding its jaw utterly shattered. Lewin genuinely intrigues him, a melee range mage who outmuscles an ogre. 3 weeks pass quickly beneath the relentless rhythm of daily training. During that period, Lewin's statistics climb at an astonishing rate. Strange develops alongside him and successfully reaches rank 3. Lewin's strength eventually rises to an unbelievable 2,130 points. Even the little bear stares in wonder at such explosive growth. Strange notes that Doom Prime needed 18 months to reach 2,000. Their conversation breaks apart when someone suddenly shouts Lewin's name. Jason races toward them, struggling desperately to catch his breath. Seeing his panic, Lewin immediately asks what has happened. "Haven't you seen it yet?" Jason gasps between ragged breaths. The Grand Festival's participant list has appeared at Ignat's entrance. Lewin remembers representing the freshmen during the Academy's entrance ceremony. That appearance earned him countless looks filled with envy and doubt. Across the previous 5 years, his performances had remained painfully pathetic. He could only watch from outside while Mikkel claimed every impressive result. Now his circumstances have changed beyond anything those students expected. Lewin rushes toward Ignat's entrance, where a huge student crowd has gathered. His heartbeat surges the instant he finds the official announcement. The posted list unmistakably names Lewin Ardell as Ignat's chosen representative. Nearby students notice him, then swarm forward with embraces and congratulations. After immense effort and patience, he has reclaimed that representative position. One professor admits being stunned when Bolvar reports Lewin's completed training. The boy has already mastered every movement within the celestial martial arts. A 16-year-old reaching 5th class is frankly terrifying to contemplate. Still, the professor believes Lewin can accomplish anything he genuinely pursues. Time advances, and Ignat's selected participants begin traveling towards Seoul. The capital will serve as the Grand Festival's enormous central stage. Inside the monotrain, excited students chatter constantly about their journey. Many enjoy the growing excitement, while Lewin concentrates with closed eyes. Some students celebrate their adventure, though others openly mock their enthusiasm. An irritated student finally snaps, "Enough childish nonsense. Keep it down." Lewin glances sideways, immediately sensing that an argument is approaching. The speaker is Hans, Mikkel's lackey and last year's festival participant. Hans sneers that anyone expecting Lewin's miracle should abandon that hope. A spiky-haired boy joins him, insisting Mikkel would have much better chances. Hans arrogantly declares that he refuses to recognize Lewin as their representative. Lewin remembers both boys abusing their influential family's connections. He remarks that Mikkel must appreciate such stubbornly faithful little lapdogs. Their master was expelled, yet these two remained obedient afterward. The cabin's atmosphere tightens instantly as Hans takes the insult personally. Despite the rising hostility, Lewin refuses to withdraw a single word. Fuming, Hans claims Lewin only speaks boldly because he represents Ignat. Lewin interrupts him and insists this festival will differ from every previous one. Strong results there could unlock opportunities unavailable through family influence. Hans clearly lacks confidence that Ignat can produce any worthwhile performance. Lewin approaches the pessimist and firmly confirms that victory remains possible. He reminds everyone that the entire festival depends upon effective collaboration. For that reason, he cannot tolerate anyone damaging their teamwork. The spiky-haired boy angrily asks whether Lewin plans to compete without them. Lewin advises both boys to think carefully throughout the approaching journey. Soon, no powerful family patron will remain to reward their loyalty. Enraged by the warning, Hans roars that Lewin cannot command him. The monotrain finally departs, racing rapidly toward its distant destination. Every student stares in amazement at the machine's breathtaking speed. Strangs bursts into laughter, marveling at how drastically the world has changed. He can barely recognize the world he once knew. Without warning, Jason and Lewin's cabin door violently bursts inward. A mocking voice claims the compartment reeks of pathetic losers. 3 young men enter, jeering at everyone as rural bumpkins. Their uniform crests identify them as students from a rival national institute. That institute is the only magical school in its desolate homeland. Its students are famous for swordsmanship and punishing physical conditioning. Lewin watches in confusion, wondering why these troublemakers came here. The trio's bald ringleader abruptly demands to know Mikkel's whereabouts. He then sneers that the blonde student must be Lewin's servant. More insults follow as the intruders swagger deeper inside. Strang marvels at Lewin's patience while he silently endures their nonsense. Lewin understands that Ignat usually receives this kind of open hostility. His eyes move toward Bolvar, seated near the carriage's rear. The professor watches quietly, showing no intention of intervening. From here onward, Ignat's representative alone carries responsibility for everyone. The bald ringleader leans against Hans's seat and asks again. A firm voice answers that Mikkel probably lies bedridden with broken ribs. Lewin rises to his full height, finally ending their little performance. The bald ringleader's expression falters upon seeing Ignat's new representative. He mutters that he has never encountered Lewin before. Recovering his swagger, the arrogant student strolls confidently toward him. He introduces himself as Seta, representative of the rival academy. Lewin responds by giving his own name in return. That introduction is enough, so he orders Seta outside immediately. Lewin also demands an apology for every insult Seta delivered. The command sends the bald hothead into an explosive rage. With a scoff, he asks whether Lewin truly expects an apology. Seta turns toward Hans and demands whether he explained anything. If not, Hans deserves another beating to refresh his memory. Lewin swiftly pieces together the reason everyone feared these visitors. Ignat students must have already suffered beatings from Seta. This intimidation campaign clearly aims to break them before the competition. In that sense, the Grand Festival has already begun. Wearing a crooked smile, Lewin asks whether the hothead wants trouble. Seta's temper flares higher, and he draws back his fist. A cloaked figure suddenly appears and commands him to stop. Seta immediately settles down and respectfully addresses the rival professor. The professor sternly rebukes his student for causing this disturbance. Turning toward Bolvar, he offers an apology for the incident. He shoves Seta away and orders him back to his seat. The furious student leaves while promising another confrontation with Lewin. Lewin remains firm, understanding that representation will never be simple. Inside the rival carriage, Seta angrily questions the professor's interference. After all, the professor himself had proposed using this intimidation tactic. Shaking his head, the older man asks whether Seda noticed Bolvar smiling. Bolvar watched the confrontation as though everything matched his expectations. Whether that smile showed confidence or something stranger remains uncertain. Still, the rival professor senses Lewin is hiding significant secrets. He also insists this newcomer differs greatly from Mikkel. Seda falls silent, carefully considering his professor's warning. Once the rival group leaves, the carriage's mood changes dramatically. Students crowd around Lewin, eagerly talking over one another. They discuss their first group competition without an established representative. Even Hans becomes energized and promises to give everything he has. Formerly divided by pride and jealousy, Ignite students finally unite. Many remain nervous because their rivals have trained through lifelong combat. Lewin interrupts their worries by asking whether nobody feels angry. Those intruders openly humiliated every person inside this carriage. Ignoring them would only encourage even crueler ridicule later. They would simply confirm every insulting claim about their backwardness. Lewin asks whether they intend to endure disrespect forever. They allowed those bullies to crush them without resistance. That weakness has invited humiliation for the past 5 years. Now is not the moment for internal battles fueled by ego. The spiky-haired student approaches Lewin with Hans beside him. He proposes placing Lewin in goal during the arrow ball match. Mikkel's former followers have finally chosen to support Lewin. An announcement declares the neutral duchy as their next stop. Everyone is instructed to gather and carry their luggage. The duchy belongs to the continent's powerful imperial federation. It also remains the empire's only officially neutral state. Any violence committed there receives judgment from the ruling empire. That protection makes the duchy ideal for enormous international tournaments. Its events include prestigious magical contests and grand fencing championships. Ignite students stare at the magnificent city in speechless amazement. Excited comments spread rapidly as everyone absorbs the unfamiliar sights. Jason says the city genuinely resembles an entirely different world. Everything looks vastly unlike the state they came from. Lewin also struggles to process the duchy's breathtaking capital. As expected from a royal capital, ancient character fills every district. The relaxed citizens make the bustling city feel surprisingly peaceful. Everything around him leaves Lewin visibly overwhelmed by the grand scenery. Lewin's amazement makes his small-town upbringing painfully obvious to everyone. The students board waiting buses bound for their assigned accommodations. During the ride, Lewin chats casually with Mikkel. Their professor warns the boys against visiting another school's lodging. Even an accidental visit could spark a fight and bring trouble. The warning feels aimed directly at Lewin, especially under that pointed stare. Something overhead suddenly captures Strang's attention. The little bear becomes so animated that even Lewin looks surprised. Strang announces that he has detected a remarkably interesting scent. Without hesitation, the little fellow leaps from Lewin's shoulder. After concentrating, he becomes nearly certain the Black Dragon's relic is nearby. At Ignite's accommodations next morning, Jason remains drowsy while Lewin rushes around. Already dressed, he bolts through the doorway like he overslept. Lewin asks Strange one last time whether he is certain. The bear promises their mini-map will reveal the target very soon. A sign identifies the entrance to a workshop specializing in touched memories. This ordinary little shop is exactly where their search leads. Lewin steps inside slowly, studying every unremarkable corner. Strange expected a black dragon's possession to occupy somewhere extraordinary. Lewin had pictured a black market stall or wealthy noble's vault. He activates his gaming sight and detects a strange inner glow. Fabulous energy pours from the artifact, bathing the whole shop in light. The ring was the Black Dragon's first artifact and earliest failure. Its practical value is so low that Lewin folds his arms, disappointed. Strang laughs at his reaction and insists the failure remains unique. It blocks attacks, but also friendly touches, and even a girlfriend's embrace. Though its function seems absurdly useless, the oddity still deserves collecting. More importantly, wearing it provides an additional 200 strength points. The ring settles onto Lewin's finger as though crafted specifically for him. He immediately asks the elderly shopkeeper how much it costs. The old man offers it freely because nobody has wanted it for years. Unwilling to exploit such generosity, Lewin chooses to purchase another item. Here his gaming sight proves invaluable for judging every object's rarity. While examining the shelves, one particular book abruptly catches his attention. It is an exceptionally rare study of quantum mechanics, magic, and swordsmanship. As he reaches toward it, a white-haired girl reaches there too. One glance reveals her identity and status through his skill. She is Irene, a 5th-class mage from a women's university. Her potential is remarkably high, even among gifted young mages. The Mage King, famed as the Frontier Mage, selected 11 next-generation talents. Irene is one of those 11 carefully chosen young mages. Lewin heard she nearly reached 5th class, but those rumors undersold her. With chilling seriousness, Irene orders him to release the book. He refuses, calmly reminding her that his hand touched it first. She introduces herself and observes that he already found his desired item. According to Irene, he is merely browsing for another courtesy purchase. She came solely for this book and politely asks him to yield it. Lewin asks why she needs a volume almost nobody would normally touch. Nerves overtake her immediately, leaving her sweating and unable to explain. She calls it personal and refuses to share any specific details. Her reaction convinces Lewin this is no ordinary university assignment. He suspects the Mage King personally requested it, or something similar. Seeing its importance, he relinquishes the book and tells Irene to take it. Then he turns away, resuming his search among the crowded shelves. Irene watches silently as warm gratitude surges across her expression. Back at Ignat's dormitory, Lewin recounts the encounter, exciting everyone. Jason and Hans instantly ask about Irene's rumored beauty and their meeting. Jason tearfully complains that touching her hand once remains his lifelong dream. Hans boasts he saw her at the festival and even sat nearby. A thoroughly pointless argument erupts between them almost immediately. Lewin redirects them, explaining Irene's extraordinary strength and consistent rankings. She always places among the top 2, losing yearly only to Doom Prime. Her unbeatable rival ranks first at the country's premier magic and soldier training school. Doom Prime is considered the finest mage of his generation nationwide. He also wields an extraordinary sword infused with radiant power. That detail finally explains Irene's desperation to secure the unusual book. She needs its knowledge to find a way past Doom Prime. Yet becoming a magic swordsman carries serious disadvantages. Swords channel less magic than other weapons, limiting their magical output. Mastering the techniques of trained knights also demands tremendous effort. Doom Prime, though, operates far beyond those ordinary limitations. His sword is an exceptionally rare artifact, not merely a weapon. His swordsmanship also eclipses the ability of any ordinary knight. Hearing this, Jason begins grumbling under his breath. Jason grumbles that Doom Prime's absurd fortune includes talent, artifacts, looks, and wealth. Hearing it all leaves Lewin jaded and lost in thought. Irene reached 5th class magic at only 16, yet Doom Prime defeats her every single time. He doubts he can challenge such celebrated geniuses. After all, he sees himself as someone nobody values. Still, Ignat's earlier verdict keeps echoing in his mind. Lewin remains a genuine candidate to claim victory. Closing his eyes, he vows to test that claim with everything. Without warning, the door slams wide, and a boy with spiked hair storms in. He shouts that the opening ceremony's first schedule has been released. The announcement instantly shatters Lewin's hard-earned concentration. He rises and heads outside with only one thought remaining. The grand festival has finally begun in earnest. Across the grounds, students from many academies eagerly await the opening. Lewin grows increasingly anxious to discover his first opponent. Symbols flash across the giant screen as the announcer reveals the matchup. The announcer identifies Seida's Academy as Ignat's opening opponent. A rival voice immediately brands Ignat students Academy mongrels and predicts victory. Lewin glances behind him while the smug boasting continues. Seida calls drawing Ignat first an incredible stroke of luck. He promises his companions they will have plenty of fun. Lewin considers Seida's Academy the worst possible opponent. Its students are infamous for dirty tactics that leave lasting scars. Seida keeps deriding Ignat as too weak for even a warm-up. His relentless insults make the surrounding rival students roar with laughter. Smiling calmly, Lewin decides this humiliation offers a valuable opportunity. He will prove that Ignat is no longer the same academy. Walking straight towards Seida, he says he has awaited this meeting. He noticed many rival students entering the festival and chose to introduce himself. "I'm Lewin Ardell, and meeting all of you is a pleasure." He adds that he has only one request to make. Never call us Academy mongrels again, because that insult is incredibly rude. Lewin's composure leaves the arrogant, bald Seida momentarily speechless. Lewin has endured last place for far too long. He has finished accepting it and now wants the top position. The rival students fire themselves up, swearing to continue using the insult. Seida scoffs at Lewin and demands to know who he thinks he is. As his Dean's Council returns, one fierce conviction ignites within Lewin. "I am Ignat's ultimate trump card, and I will never retreat again." Inside Seida's dormitory, a furious argument erupts among the boys. They debate Lewin Ardell's identity and quickly investigate his background. A rapid search exposes his history as a failed student. Then, at semester's end, he suddenly earned an astounding 180 points. That score transformed him into a prodigy, with exceptional grades. This sudden achievement, Seida concludes, explains Lewin's newfound confidence. He remembers his professor's strange warning about Lewin. The warning claimed Lewin possessed something they still failed to understand. Seida quickly dismisses that concern, calling Ignat mere academy mongrels. Stretching lazily, he vows to handle them soon through his academy's traditional methods. At Ignat's lodgings, tomorrow brings the Mana Grenade launch event. It is a fierce team contest involving everyone except the representative. Competitors must throw mana grenades and destroy mithril golems. Whichever team shatters its targets fastest claims victory. A worried student approaches Lewin, his voice thick with uncertainty. Will we really manage this event without you? Lewin answers honestly that Ignat lacks exceptional individual talent against Seida's academy. Deep down though, he remains certain victory is reachable. Because the contest rewards teamwork, genuine unity can carry them. He orders everyone to divide into specialized groups immediately. One unit will manufacture the mana grenades. Another will transport each grenade after its ignition. A third group will launch the attack against the golems. The fourth will sabotage their rivals by healing the opposing golem. The students trade uneasy looks after hearing this unusual strategy. That approach will make destroying the golems take forever, they protest. Lewin narrows his eyes and begins constructing a precise plan. He then asks what they thought about his earlier declaration, "We will not finish last, we will take first place." Every word of that promise had been utterly sincere. Lewin will give everything, even during events where he cannot participate. Traditional tactics favor teams possessing superior individual abilities. For Ignat, that approach would fatally waste precious time. "I trust Lewin," Jason says with immediate certainty. Hans immediately agrees, echoing Jason's confidence in the plan. Their support lifts morale, and everyone quickly embraces Lewin's strategy. Hans receives leadership of the unit crafting the grenades. Mikkel takes command of transporting each ignited grenade. Lewin assigns everyone according to their strongest qualities. His gamer's eye ability becomes invaluable throughout the process. It reveals each target's nature, reduces weaknesses, and identifies strengths. Gradually, the students become more confident in their own abilities. Once everyone enters the perfect group, even doubters begin feeling hopeful. Relief washes over Lewin as his team-forming talent proves exceptional. He knows confidence always marks the first step toward victory. Just as hope begins blossoming, Bolvar stumbles into the meeting. Bolvar is battered and bruised when Lewin hurries over in alarm. He urgently demands to know who left the boy in such condition. Bolvar reveals Seta and several cronies ambushed him for the rival academy. A thunderous crash soon rattles the halls of the rival training facility. Lewin appears in the doorway where Seta greets him without any surprise. Sneering, he admits expecting this visit and challenges Lewin's next move. Lewin raises one hand and firmly orders Seta to come talk. A sly grin spreads across Seta's face as he mocks Lewin's confidence. He calls Lewin insane and asks what makes him act so fearless. In response, Lewin calmly plants one hand upon his rival's shoulder. He repeats the command while applying an unbearable amount of pressure. The crushing force drives Seta onto his knees and makes him bow. Shocked and furious, Seta springs forward and throws a vicious punch. Lewin slips aside effortlessly, then catches the attacking arm in midair. His grip tightens painfully while Seta struggles to pull himself free. Lewin warns him never to attack another student outside the arena. If Seta repeats it, Lewin promises the consequences will become far worse. Groaning, Seta collapses and glares upward with rage burning in his eyes. Lewin calmly meets that hateful stare and offers him a wager. Back at Ignat, excited students spread the wager throughout the facility. If Ignat defeats the rival academy, Seta must accept a devastating flick. Its power will match the infamous blow that once shattered Mikkel. Seta must also apologize publicly to every person he has wronged. That promise ignites the students, strengthening their determination to win. One student interrupts the celebration and urges everyone toward the festival stadium. The Grand Festival gathers mages from across the entire continent. Historically, exceptional competitors here become figures capable of reshaping history. Ignite students now carry themselves with striking confidence and genuine hope. Lewin feels exhilarated inside the place where countless legends were forged. A mustached elder eventually announces that the opening ceremony has concluded. Lewin starts toward his quarters, but a hostile stare catches his attention. Seta warns him to stay alert because his guard will remain raised. The bald challenger then turns his back and walks away without another word. Yet Seta is not the opponent Lewin truly wants to study. His attention instead settles upon the infamous champion, Doom Prime. Doom Prime leads a prestigious school devoted to magic and soldier training. As reigning festival champion, he represents the competition's greatest looming threat. Ignat will face him if they secure enough victories during the tournament. A familiar voice interrupts Lewin's thoughts and calls him a trouble magnet. Irene approaches from behind, wearing an amused smile on her face. She mentions seeing him yesterday, stirring chaos around the rival dormitories. This place is small, so Irene assumes everyone already knows everything. Embarrassed, Lewin insists he never intended to create any serious trouble. According to him, he only went there hoping to have a conversation. Remembering how he surrendered the book, Irene offers some friendly advice. She tells him avoiding attention would probably make his life much easier. Lewin counters by asking whether he should imitate her and conceal his power. He then excuses himself because the first event's competitors are assembling. That pointed remark leaves Irene feeling unexpectedly tense and uncomfortable. Only minutes remain before the upcoming grenade competition officially begins. Ignat students gather together and prepare themselves for the opening challenge. An energized Jason declares they will prove they are no longer Akata Mongols. The boys march toward the competition grounds with their confidence soaring. Soon the festival's first challenge gets underway. Before the restless crowd, many spectators become confused by the unfamiliar structure of the competition. Previous winners usually prevailed through individual skill rather than organized teamwork. Separating competitors into groups feels unusual to nearly everyone watching. The audience debates each formation, though most predict Ignat's rival will win. Lewin cannot ignore the crowd's constant insults toward his struggling academy. Standing behind him, Irene carefully studies his reaction to every comment. Even she can barely believe the unexpected scene unfolding before them. Ignat's golem has already lost one arm, leaving the team severely pressured. Still, the students refuse to surrender and drive themselves even harder. Although not competing directly, Lewin shouts rapid instructions from the audience. Following his guidance, Ignat smashes apart the opposing golem's right arm. Across the grounds, Seta erupts with fury at the unbelievable reversal. He screams at his teammates for losing against the so-called Akata Mongols. Ignat's team keeps attacking relentlessly and never allows the golem to recover. Hatred twists Seta's expression as swollen veins stand out across his face. Irene covers her mouth, utterly astonished by the performance before her. Ignat's advantage comes entirely from Lewin's carefully constructed battle strategy. Such coordination requires measuring every participant's abilities with extraordinary precision. Lewin previously located Irene's missing book almost as soon as she asked. He also arranged every teammate according to individual strengths and weaknesses. Irene wonders what kind of person possesses such unnatural analytical talent. She also questions why no earlier festival has ever featured him. Jason charges a magical grenade and launches it with all his strength. The projectile slams into the golem and instantly tears away part of it. Watching the impact leaves Seta stunned and unable to speak. He swallows hard, finding no words for the disaster unfolding. The battered golem finally crashes down, its entire body thoroughly destroyed. Ignite students embrace one another and erupt into joyful celebration. Jason's squad deservedly claims victory in the mana grenade throwing contest. Most spectators expect the rival academy to win instead. Jason's squad finally climbs away from the very bottom. Last place now belongs to the humiliated rival academy. Mocking spectators quickly rename them the rival scraps. Next comes Capture the Flag, fought between each academy's chosen representative. Everyone from Ignat gathers behind Lewin Ardell and cheers loudly. Once again, Ignat faces the same rival academy. Strang notices Lewin's tension and remarks that he looks nervous. Lewin says ranking 20th among 32 schools is absolutely perfect. Their previous victory attracts attention without erasing their reputation as losers. Now he only needs to secure an overwhelmingly decisive victory. Such a triumph would transform how everyone views their entire team. Strange smiles because he understands Lewin's intentions perfectly. Looking upward, Lewin says they must also impress the Magic King. Inside the dome, an important private meeting unfolds. The long-haired Flame King watches Lewin confront Seta through a crystal ball. He remembers Lewin being one candidate among 11 human children. From childhood, Lewin possesses tremendous talent and instinctively manipulates mana. That natural gift makes his magic evocation disorder especially disappointing. Ignat's Academy Lord asks whether the king once dismissed Lewin as useless. Hearing this challenge, the long-haired king releases a quiet chuckle. He considers Ignat's representative choice terrible and sees no hidden strategy. The Academy Lord merely closes his eyes with unwavering confidence. He calmly tells the Flame King to watch everything personally. Outside, Strang questions Lewin about closing the distance against Seta. Holding his head high, Lewin promises to fight entirely his way. He intends to pour everything he possesses into this match. The referee prepares to give the starting signal. Once the match begins, Lewin immediately lunges towards Seta. Mana surges around Seta's hands as rage twists his expression. He vows to punish Lewin for everything that happened inside the dormitory. Seta then summons a massive armored battle guardian. The towering construct plants itself directly across Lewin's path. Lewin activates time refraction and smoothly avoids the knight's charge. Within an instant, he appears directly behind his startled opponent. His impossible speed leaves Seta unable to understand what happened. Seta swings defensively, yet Lewin catches his fist without effort. Grinning, Lewin tightens his grip and says his suspicion was correct. Trembling with fury, Seta demands that Lewin release him. Lewin warns that Seta may soon regret making that request. The summoned guardian is charging them with its spear leveled. Sweat covers Seta's brow as he desperately orders it to stop. Its spearhead halts mere inches away from Seta's terrified face. Lewin's crushing grip keeps him immobilized directly within the weapon's path. Memories of his earlier dormitory humiliation surge through Seta's mind. The tremendous physical power emanating from Lewin is impossible to deny. Accepting defeat, Seta closes his eyes and braces himself. He awaits the unavoidable impact, but nothing strikes him. Confused, Seta cautiously opens one eye to investigate. Lewin drives forward a blazing punch and smashes the guardian apart. Seta stares blankly at the impossible sight before him. Lewin has shattered an iron guardian using only his bare hand. The critically damaged summoned creature cracks and begins collapsing. Still overwhelmed by disbelief, Seta crumples onto the ground. With the Guardian destroyed, Lewin steadily approaches his fallen opponent. Seda remains seated and stares upward at his rival. Stammering in confusion, he asks whether Lewin just saved him. Lewin scoffs as though the question answers itself. He asks why anyone would rescue someone who harmed his classmates. Truthfully, Lewin simply wants to finish Seda with his own hands. He reminds Seda about the wager they previously made. A playful gleam appears within Lewin's eyes. He announces that Seda will receive one tiny forehead flick. The instant his fingers touch Seda's forehead, tremendous force erupts. Seda rockets through the air like debris swallowed by a cyclone. During his flight, one absurd thought crosses his stunned mind. The sky above him looks surprisingly clear and blue. The entire stadium explodes into thunderous celebration. Spectators gape at the unbelievable technique they have just witnessed. Ignite roars as though it has already claimed the championship. Excited voices spread throughout the stands, all discussing Lewin. Yet his performance also captures someone vastly more powerful. The Frontier Mage watches the crystal ball in absolute disbelief. As the only 8-star mage, he is revered like a demigod. Even he has never witnessed anything resembling Lewin's extraordinary display. The Flame King's widened eyes expose the depth of his astonishment. Studying the crystal image, he wonders about this remarkable young man's identity. His rapidly growing curiosity becomes almost impossible to suppress. One question burns fiercely inside the Frontier Mage's mind. He needs to understand exactly who Lewin Ardell truly is. Intense curiosity and rising fury seize the Flame King together. He demands everything Ignit's Academy Lord knows about Lewin. The Academy Lord lowers his head and remains silent briefly. Finally, he describes Lewin as an exceptionally ordinary student. Everyone once expects someone like him to abandon the academy. Instead, Lewin somehow reshapes every weakness into an unstoppable advantage. That is everything the Academy Lord knows, at least for now. Rising, the king accuses him of shielding Lewin from royal curiosity. He suggests summoning the boy and questioning him personally. The Academy Lord rises from his seat as well. He warns that forcing answers will require stopping the king. Whatever the price, the Academy Lord refuses to let that happen. Another sarcastic smirk slowly spreads across the Flame King's face. Still smirking, he begins directing a new question toward the Academy Lord. He asks whether Ignit will invoke every mage's sacred right to secrecy. His question concerns the traditional oath protecting a mage's hidden knowledge. The Flame King decides speaking briefly with Lewin Ardell presents no difficulty. He intends to investigate the strange magic he first witnessed within Lewin. Far away, Lewin grips his aching head inside a rowdy pub. He groans that they only came here for a competition. They should be preparing for the next event instead. Yet everyone around him celebrates as though tomorrow will never arrive. Jason approaches and urges his friend to enjoy their first victory. After all, this entire occasion is supposed to be a festival. He presents vanilla coconut juice alongside a bottle of Dragon Kiss. Lewin studies the unfamiliar bottle and asks what kind of drink it is. Holding up its label, Jason calls it the region's signature beverage. One sip supposedly feels like planting a kiss upon a dragon. Jason promises that one full gulp will produce incredible sensations. Their conversation abruptly dies when someone catches Lewin's attention. Seda stands nearby, wearing the forlorn expression of an abandoned puppy. Every Ignit student freezes upon noticing the unexpected visitor. Jason steps forward and acknowledges that Seda's pride must still hurt. Still, he asks Seda to leave because everyone is enjoying themselves. Lewin anxiously wonders whether Seda came here seeking another confrontation. Instead, Seda calmly announces that he has come to apologize. Those words leave both friends staring at him in utter shock. He asks forgiveness for constantly looking down on them until now. Losing against Lewin taught him never to underestimate another person. Countless stronger people exist, and he admits making many serious mistakes. Jason struggles to understand how Seda changed so drastically overnight. Finishing his confession, Seda bows respectfully and offers another apology. Lewin remains speechless while several heavy moments pass around the table. The other students feel their stomachs tighten during this bizarre exchange. Seda then apologizes for spoiling their cheerful celebratory mood. As he turns away, Lewin calls out his name. He asks whether this apology concerns only their wager. More importantly, Lewin wants to know whether Seda truly means it. With an earnest gaze, Seda confirms that every word came sincerely. The honest answer immediately brings a warm smile to Lewin's face. Lewin offers his hand and praises Seda for apologizing like a true man. Although sadness still shadows his face, Seda accepts the offered gesture. Their hands meet, sealing the apology between them. Ignit students welcome Seda's remorse and resume enjoying the celebration. Soon everyone laughs, embraces one another, and drinks themselves senseless. Yet one particular word suddenly reverberates through Lewin's mind: atmosphere. His friends gather around and ask whether he feels alright. By the next morning, Lewin awakens with his first hangover. His classmates laugh and ask whether Dragon Kiss erased his memory. During the previous night, Lewin tearfully thanked everyone for trusting him. Apparently, even the seemingly perfect Lewin possesses an embarrassing hidden side. Overcome with humiliation, he immediately withdraws from the room. Since that beverage triggers emotional collapses, he vows never to touch it again. While walking away, Lewin suddenly hears someone calling his name. Seda appears with a bright smile and asks whether he slept comfortably. Humiliating memories from the previous evening instantly surge through Lewin's mind. Unlike him, Seda shows absolutely no embarrassment about their drunken celebration. Lewin quickens his pace, desperately wishing the entire ordeal would disappear. Along the corridor, he unexpectedly collides with the professor. The professor remarks that incidents and trouble constantly gather around Lewin. Puzzled by that comment, Lewin asks whether the professor knows something. The professor denies knowing details, but says someone requested a conversation. That request deeply worries the dean because the visitor seems dangerous. A cleverly constructed mask also conceals the visitor's true intentions. The mysterious visitor is the Flame King, who specifically wishes to meet Lewin. The professor warns him to remain cautious during their eventual conversation. Very little is known about the Flame King's true nature. People carrying countless secrets often prove especially dangerous, the professor explains. Apologizing, he says this warning is everything he can currently disclose. After today's competition, the professor will explain more about that meeting. Lewin's teammates become thrilled that the king suddenly finds him interesting. He declares that they now possess another reason to secure victory. With confidence, Lewin finally reveals the strategy prepared for their team. He names it Operation Defend What You Can. Under this plan, Lewin must sprint directly toward the opposing goal. During arrow ball matches, enchanted arrows soar independently throughout the arena. Each academy fields 9 members, divided among attackers, defenders, and 1 goalie. Whichever team sends more arrows into the opposing goal claims victory. Although the rules sound simple, success requires advanced planning and precise tactics. Players must carefully time defensive spells and magic controlling enemy movements. They also need proper technique for gripping and throwing the arrow ball. Every successful launch must drive the projectile into the enemy net. With so many factors involved, arrow ball usually becomes loud and frantic. Players race wildly across the field while voices thunder everywhere. Lewin charges toward the opposing goal at tremendous speed. 2 enemy defenders answer by casting ice magic directly across his path. Continuing his attack, Lewin summons a blazing fireball spell. Neither freezing magic nor containment spells can restrain his advance. From the spectator stands, Seda enthusiastically cheers for his new friend. His schoolmates criticize how friendly he has suddenly become with Ignite students. Seda explains that true men become friends after exchanging blows. One companion points out that no actual fight ever happened. Mikkel suddenly moves to cut that uncomfortable correction short. Mikkel silences his companion with a glare, hiding that Seda was thrashed. He decides leaving matters alone is wiser than provoking Lewin. Facing Lewin, Ardell has left Mikkel firmly convinced. To him, Lewin belongs among Magic's remarkable rising generation. Irene, Jason, and Doom Prime represent that same extraordinary wave. Yet he believes Lewin already stands above every one of them. Raw strength is only one part of Lewin's impressive character. He also displays natural leadership and an astonishing capacity for patience. Those traits leave Seda, the bald student, grateful they became friends. With their next opponents approaching, Ignite begins preparing its strategy. Across the field, the rival captain screams for everyone to stop Ardell. Every defender throws everything possible into containing the charging student. Still, Lewin twists and glides through every obstacle they create. Each attempted block fails as he threads through their formation. Sprinting at full speed, he reaches them and asks, "Are you finished?" Then he warns the defenders that his own turn begins now. A towering wall of ice suddenly bursts upward between both sides. Clenching his jaw, Lewin draws back one devastating fist. His punch tears straight through the barrier, opening a massive hole. Jagged ice fragments rocket toward the defenders like scattered blades. They immediately dive down, narrowly avoiding the frozen projectiles. Jason asks whether everyone else becomes irrelevant if they only catch Lewin. While the defenders remain distracted, he successfully claims the arrow. The opposing students immediately sense the danger behind his maneuver. With a forceful throw, Jason sends the arrow hurtling toward their goal. The board changes from 1 to 0 to 2 to 0 in Ignite's favor. Though trailing by 2, the rivals continue marking Lewin without mercy. Jason and his teammates eagerly exploit every opening this obsession creates. The enemy cannot cover Ignite's other players while surrounding Lewin. Their defensive barrier breaks apart almost the instant it appears. Spectators in the stands struggle to believe what they are witnessing. Utterly cornered, the opposing team finally signals its surrender. Ordinary matches usually produce only 3 or 4 goals total. Ignite has already reached 11 goals without conceding even one. The surrender seals an overwhelmingly decisive victory for Lewin's academy. Defeated students depart gloomily. Accepting Lewin truly meant his championship claim. Another victory sends Ignite's confidence soaring even higher than before. A calling voice cuts through the team's lively celebration. Professor Hans enters the room and specifically asks for Lewin. He announces their arranged meeting will happen during dinner at 7. Elsewhere, the mysterious host drinks wine while calmly surveying the landscape. He hopes Lewin will arrive without eating anything beforehand. At the meeting site, Hans beckons and indicates the correct chamber. Lewin greets the waiting king and they enter together. Crossing through a purple portal, they emerge somewhere entirely different. Upon entering the room, Lewin hears a formal welcome. Immense mana pours from the man standing in front of him. Lewin asks whether this astonishing figure might actually be a dragon. The truth is stranger, since this mage stands between humanity and demigodhood. The renowned, elusive flaming king waits beside a table overflowing with dishes. A genuine feast covers the lavish table from one end to another. While slicing his steak, the king admits already knowing several things about Lewin. He once observed the young mage from afar 5 years earlier. Back then, the king was searching for the mysterious 11th child. Lewin had been a candidate, though his former self seemed utterly different. Setting that aside, the king asks what changed during those years. Lewin now understands the reason behind this private invitation. His present existence demonstrates that the boundary mage's old judgment failed. The king wants Lewin himself to confirm that earlier judgment was correct. With careful courtesy, Lewin says he can offer only one answer. The king smiles and invites him to share it. Even if my talent falls short, my effort never does, Lewin replies. With dismissive amusement, the mage slowly repeats the word effort. He notes that teacher and student sound remarkably alike. After all, Hans once defended himself using that exact same word. The king then asks what form Lewin's supposed effort actually took. His sarcasm sharpens as he questions whether training alone explains everything. Could ordinary training make Lewin stronger than an ogre, he asks? Could it also remove every delay normally required for casting magic? He demands something more concrete and believable than vague dedication. Perhaps an artifact explains it, though he knows none with such abilities. Hans cuts into the interrogation and suggests ending the discussion there. The king agrees, noting that many competitions still remain ahead. He promises to scrutinize Lewin's every move during the coming contests. Those efforts must eventually prove themselves against the king's own children. Smiling without hesitation, Lewin invites him to continue watching closely. Rising from his seat, he admits having one question of his own. He wonders how the king's chosen children truly compare against him. The king's stare instantly hardens, hearing a challenge beneath those words. The stadium is already packed tightly with eager spectators. More people gather throughout the stands and erupt into loud cheers. Hans remarks that the king treated Lewin politely and thanks him. The king laughs, asking whether Hans feared he might eat the student. He says gifted mages always receive considerate treatment from him. His probing questions came from nothing more than simple curiosity. Hans asks whether that curiosity has finally been satisfied. The king begins his reply, saying, The boy did not reveal his secrets, leaving my curiosity unsatisfied. Yet another form of curiosity has begun growing within the king. That audacious rascal also seemed to slip him a subtle warning. Hans asks the king to treat Lewin gently despite his boldness. After all, the young mage is still only a youth. Lewin showed no fear while standing before the king of mages. Most grown men would have pleaded and crawled at his feet. That fearless attitude makes Lewin an exceptionally fascinating person. Even the king wishes the child he raises showed more spark. The stands erupt as countless voices thunder throughout the arena. Most spectators chant for Doom Prime, yet he remains visibly grim. To him, such noisy admiration feels utterly meaningless and insignificant. A breathless messenger suddenly races over with urgent information. He leans close and whispers the message directly into Doom's ear. Doom asks whether the breathless messenger is certain about this. The boy confirms that he personally saw Lewin enter the magic tower. Troubled by that revelation, Doom tightens both hands into fists. The king granted someone besides him a private audience. Doom has watched several of Lewin's matches during the competition. He knows Lewin poses trouble because of his unusual magical style. Still, Doom never considered him important enough to warrant attention. Yet uniqueness alone cannot explain the king's intense curiosity toward Lewin. An image flashes of the king speaking warmly and casually with Lewin. A violent crash suddenly rolls through the otherwise quiet corridor. Overcome by fury, Doom drives his fist straight into the wall. He refuses to forgive Lewin for receiving the king's personal attention. Only Doom believes himself worthy of earning the king's approval. The doors to the king's room swing open with sudden force. Lewin steps outside, shock immediately spreading across his face. He has unexpectedly encountered the legendary Doom Prime waiting outside. Doom answers his startled gaze with an openly hostile expression. Without hesitation, Doom demands details about Lewin's conversation with the king. Stunned, Lewin asks whether Doom waited there solely for that reason. Ignoring the question, Doom orders him to provide an answer first. Lewin seriously questions why he should explain anything to Doom. Slowly, Doom begins pulling his sword free from its sheath. He admits there is no reason, yet still demands the truth. Disbelief crosses Lewin's face as he senses an imminent fight. He asks whether Doom truly intends to battle right there. They are nowhere near the stadium where matches officially belong. Unfazed, Doom says he is ready if matters come to that. The two young men lock eyes across the narrow corridor. Crushing tension gathers between them, making the surrounding air feel heavy. Doom's overwhelming strength leaves Lewin unable to identify any weakness. Still, drawing a sword away from the stadium seems almost unbelievable. The blade barely clears its sheath when someone commands them to stop. Irene stands nearby, interrupting their fight before either man attacks. She jokes that everyone present makes this look like an arranged meeting. She says no meeting is scheduled, despite plans for a welcoming reception. Still scowling, Doom ignores them both and turns his back. Without another word, he walks away through the corridor. Lewin asks whether Doom always behaves with such extreme sensitivity. Irene explains that Doom is normally so quiet people barely hear him. His behavior today is clearly an unusual and remarkable exception. Doom's sensitive side always emerges whenever the king becomes involved. He would do almost anything to gain the king's recognition. Doom likely resents Lewin for receiving what seems like special attention. Smiling warmly, Irene asks whether Lewin truly intended to fight. Lewin says no, believing Doom only wanted to frighten him. A real fight would probably get both competitors immediately disqualified. With a mischievous grin, Irene asks whether the intimidation succeeded. She specifically wonders if Doom managed to scare Lewin. Doom resembles a massive wall that ordinary attacks cannot easily breach. Lewin believes every wall eventually collapses under enough repeated strikes. His answer makes Irene burst into sudden delighted laughter. She declares that Lewin truly is an exceptionally strange person. Regardless, Irene advises him to remain careful from this point onward. Doom has never been someone known for mercy or compassion. From now onward, his watchful eyes will surely remain fixed on Lewin. Inside the Ignite dormitories, Jason complains endlessly in bitter disappointment. Lewin tries comforting him, reminding everyone that they fought their hardest. Han says tying for 4th in the team competition was miraculous. They accomplished that result despite lacking their main representative. Their winning streak ended, which remains an undeniable disappointment. Even so, their performance demonstrated open defiance against the Global Academy. The individual competition is now preparing to begin at last. Hans asks Lewin what he intends to accomplish during this event. Smiling confidently, Lewin declares that he will definitely take victory. He sips his hot chocolate and confirms his final objective. By the competition's conclusion, Lewin must secure 1st place overall. For now, his individual ranking remains tied for the leading position. Irene, String, Bolvar, and Doom are all exceptionally powerful competitors. The upcoming event carries the title Battle of Survival. All 32 representatives now travel toward a specially constructed artificial venue. The artificial venue is a secluded island. 1st place awards 32 points, while last place grants only 1. Because points determine rankings, this event could overturn the entire leaderboard. Hans believes his friend can excel, yet wonders why Lewin remains idle. Every other representative is already busy arranging alliances. Cooperation for survival is permitted and recognized as a legitimate strategy. Facing coordinated teams alone would leave Lewin at an enormous disadvantage. Hans advises him to join one of the forming groups. Someone has occupied Lewin's thoughts since the very beginning. Unfortunately, he cannot guarantee that she will accept his proposal. Even imagining their partnership leaves him absorbed in thought. Seda suddenly arrives and proposes forming an alliance with Lewin. Lewin nearly overlooked him. Despite his considerable strength, they hurry away together, promising never to betray each other during battle. Seda's straightforward honesty makes him a dependable teammate. Still, they must quickly recruit one final member. A gathered crowd complains about one demanding girl rejecting every invitation. The Academy's flower-framed shield sways gracefully within the passing breeze. Seda stares in disbelief upon discovering Lewin's intended recruit. He knows Irene is tremendously powerful and asks whether they are friends. Excitement quickly overtakes him as he imagines fighting beside her. Lewin tells him to settle down because nobody has asked her yet. Every previous student seeking her cooperation has apparently been rejected. Approaching her somehow feels more frightening than confessing romantic feelings. The door opens and Irene promptly orders them to stop whispering. She has been watching them from inside the entire time. Smiling warmly, Irene suggests arranging a meeting to discuss their strategy. The newly formed trio begins preparing its survival plan. Lewin confirms that the largest alliance contains 14 competitors. Mikkel leads that faction and consistently places within the highest 5. His preferred specialties are light magic and divine magic. Seda predicts Mikkel will become their group's most troublesome opponent. Lewin warns that another competitor poses an equally severe threat. Doom Prime now carries a personal grudge against him. After all, tournament conditions change according to every participant's performance. High above the ground, a flying transport cuts across the sky. An official asks whether everyone has properly equipped their armor. Exhausting an armor's durability triggers immediate teleportation and elimination. Their transport is already closing in on the tournament island. All competitors leave the vessel in an orderly line. Seda trembles visibly. Despite the competition not having started yet, their sole objective is surviving upon the island for 72 hours. An oppressive tension gathers around Doom Prime as everyone keeps away. All participants fear finding themselves anywhere near him. As expected, he chooses solitude, though nobody dares underestimate him. Students must next board smaller boats bound for the main island. Inside one vessel, Lewin's team passes through a glowing blue portal. The portal carries them directly into a completely different environment. A surrounding barrier will steadily contract, establishing the remaining safe zone. They need shelter inside that zone before time runs out. Thick vegetation covers the island, with countless trees blocking their view. After exploring briefly, Seda already begins complaining about his hunger. He carefully questions their leader without intending any challenge to authority. They should have collected the delicious-looking food available near the entrance. Lewin teases him for previously insisting they ambush opponents immediately. Their small argument ends when a sudden disturbance shakes the forest. A huge explosion erupts alarmingly close to their position. Startled, Seta wonders whether combat has already broken out. The opportunity he eagerly awaited has finally presented itself. Food no longer matters because their prey is passing directly beneath them. Several unsuspecting students trudge together through the dense forest. One complains they should have saved their food collection until later. Heavy provisions now make traveling across the rough terrain far harder. A blue streak suddenly shoots toward the burdened group. It strikes the student carrying an especially heavy backpack. Everyone panics and shouts warnings about the surprise assault. Gathering his mana, Seta declares that he has awaited these scoundrels. His iron spear spell finally launches toward the unprepared targets. Irene simultaneously gathers enough power for another devastating attack. A gigantic sphere of mana hovers directly above her head. She is invoking the renowned 5th tier ice spell. A violently freezing blizzard surges toward their trapped adversaries. True to Irene's reputation, her expression never changes while casting it. During the assault, Seta notices an incoming strike targeting him. The ambushed students identify 3 attackers, including Irene. They decide to advance while blocking everything they possibly can. These targets are capable mages rather than helpless students. Like Lewin's team, every one of them represents an academy. Confronted by their resistance, Lewin finally enters the fight himself. His landing from the tree immediately draws several students' attention. One student spots movement beside a bush and fires there. He shouts that the hidden enemy is inside that brush. Lewin narrowly slips aside as the magical strike tears past him. Lewin activates time refraction, sharply distorting the flow around him. He swiftly threads between every adversary while preparing his counterattack. His counter lands as a crushing kick into one boy's stomach. Another boy immediately retaliates by casting a magical binding spell. Lewin answers by launching an enormous fireball straight toward them. The boys recognize a mana explosion and scramble desperately for cover. One panicked runner flees wildly as the pathway starts crumbling. Seta signals Lewin to hurry and catch the fleeing opponent. An instant later, Lewin appears behind him carrying an energy sphere. The resulting blast flashes brightly enough to be seen from afar. Overwhelmed by the strike, the panicked runner falls unconscious. The surrounding area then begins twisting in a distinctly unnatural way. His body gradually disappears as the field transports him elsewhere. The runner's partners approach and witness the chaos left behind. Now the remaining matchup stands at 4 fighters against 3. Fear overwhelms the last holdout, who immediately surrenders and accepts defeat. That victory leaves Lewin's trio with a generous supply of food. Their new provisions include plentiful fruit and meat for a feast. Altogether, the students gathered enough food to last 3 days. Another nearby explosion suddenly rings out, making Seta jump in alarm. That disturbance comes from the direction Jason's group was heading. Starting a battle against more than 10 opponents is an astonishing spectacle. Such a feat is called a bottleneck, requiring exceptionally rare magical power. The bald Seta remarks that Lewin has grown tremendously within 1 year. Lewin's thoughts instead remain fixed on Doom Prime's incredible strength. Late afternoon settles as a room door slowly creaks open. A narrow ray spills inside and softly illuminates the space. No evidence suggests another group has visited the room. Taking advantage of the respite, the team relaxes and exercises. Seta considers cooking, but the spreading aroma would expose them. For their own safety, they postpone preparing anything for now. Irene asks how Lewin managed to predict these developments already. After all, every event is unfolding exactly as he expected. Their planning identified the central village as the only sufficiently large location. It alone could accommodate an enormous gathering of competing students. Jason's team would probably move there, with Doom Prime following. Irene questions whether approaching such a large group alone is reckless. Lewin remains certain that Doom Prime will make exactly that choice. For a solo competitor, victory requires accumulating many kill points. Every eliminated opponent adds more points to the responsible student's total. That makes aggressive hunting a highly believable path toward victory. Slightly embarrassed, Lewin says he imagined himself in that position. He merely considered what strategy he personally would have chosen. Besides, Doom Prime wants to attract the Fire King's attention. That desire guarantees he will continue behaving with reckless confidence. Scratching her chin, Irene studies Lewin and finds everything strangely suspicious. Regardless, the trio agrees to rotate watches and monitor events carefully. Night covers the area beneath the glow of a full moon. While Lewin sleeps, someone repeatedly whispers his name nearby. Irene wakes him and reports that someone has found their shelter. Lewin peers through the house window and surveys the darkness outside. A mysterious hooded figure is lingering near the building. Irene checks carefully and confirms there is only one visitor. Initially, she assumes the stranger does not know they are inside. Lewin finds that explanation suspicious and tells her to wake Seta. He warns Irene that he will guard the entrance himself. The nocturnal visitor crosses the grass slowly toward the house door. Inside, Lewin crouches behind that door and prepares to strike. A lone visitor is highly likely to be whom he suspects. The door opens and the hooded stranger quietly enters the house. Hidden behind the door, Lewin remains unnoticed by the intruder. He firmly grabs the stranger's hood and hurls him forward. Thrown off balance, the intruder crashes heavily onto the floor. Lewin rushes over and clamps his mouth shut, preventing any noise. He then illuminates the room using a simple light spell. Under that glow, Seta identifies the intruder as Representative Hans. Hans apologizes for trespassing and claims he thought the building empty. Seeking certainty, Lewin asks whether he truly came here alone. The young representative quietly confirms that nobody accompanied him. Lewin then asks what happened to his team's other 6 members. Only one answer leaves Hans's lips: Doom Prime. His entire group had marched directly into a carefully laid trap. Their large formation advanced with deliberate and calculated precision. They intended to ambush Mikhail's squad for effortless kill points. Doom Prime suddenly appeared and transformed the attackers into hunted prey. After hearing the explosion, Jason led his entire team into battle. His group launched a brutal assault against the trapped students. Hans resisted fiercely, but only 2 members managed to escape. Even then, their terrifying ordeal was nowhere near finished. The 2 wounded survivors limped onward while trying to flee. Without warning, Doom Prime appeared before them once again. He had not actually participated in the original clash. Instead, he stayed hidden nearby until the fighting finally ended. Then he followed the injured students who escaped the battlefield. By exploiting the confusion, Doom Prime secured an overwhelming advantage. Despite everything, Hans boldly asks permission to join Lewin's team. Seta thoughtfully strokes his chin and begins admitting that Hans has a solid strategy, yet Lewin rejects him without hesitation. Then he demands, "How did you escape that battle, Hans? Wounded against Doom Prime, you could never have survived," he adds. Irene and Seta exchange wary glances, sensing a deeper accusation. 3 disturbing explanations immediately race through their minds. Hans is lying, Doom Prime spared him, or someone watches nearby. Always vigilant, Lewin has already activated his player's eye. To his horror, the ability reveals no information about Hans. That impossible result confirms this man is an imposter. Their disturbance startles an owl which flaps into the dark sky. Lewin suddenly punches the imposter, who vanishes like an illusion. He shouts, "Move now! Someone has been watching us!" Dawn rises over the island as the group considers everything. Perhaps the real Hans was killed and secretly replaced. Irene strongly suspects Jason is responsible for the deception. He ranks among Ignat's finest students and specializes in powerful potions. Jason is also notorious for creating flawless copies of people. Worse still, he belongs to Mikhail's dangerous group. The revelation means enemies now surround them from every direction. Since their position is exposed, another ambush could strike any time. The contracting barrier will also seal their western escape route soon. They embrace an old principle: use one criminal against another. Their daring new strategy is turning every enemy against the others. Inside a concealed hideout, Bolvar asks whether Jason located their opponents. Jason chuckles and reports, "They are scrambling around the west. My disguise nearly worked, but they exposed me eventually," he admits. Bolvar presses him, asking how anyone saw through the copy. Jason cannot explain why Lewin acted with such absolute certainty. One unexpected punch was enough to end the entire deception. He asks what they should do about those 3 formidable mages. A dangerous gleam enters Bolvar's eyes as he answers, "We capture them by unleashing everything we have," he declares. Bolvar's adventurer mages begin marching through the dense forest. They advance single file, with everyone prepared for sudden combat. Glancing backward, Bolvar says the western base is nearly within reach. A colossal beam suddenly erupts ahead, blinding the entire formation. The deafening noise suggests Lewin Ardell has entered another battle. Bolvar decides this chaos offers their perfect chance to advance. As they approach, 3 shadowy silhouettes appear through the trees. One figure screams, "Watch behind you, this is an ambush." The blonde mage draws his bow and launches a divine arrow. He quickly discovers the shadowy target is not Lewin. A golden detonation follows, flooding the entire forest with radiance. High above, the 3 heroes remain hidden inside a tree. Everything follows their plan, since the fireworks drew their enemies running. Seta laughs while Irene asks what they should do next. Lewin answers, "Now we collect the kill points waiting below." Bolvar and his companions are utterly unprepared for the real ambush. Wrapped in blazing magic, Lewin plunges upon them from overhead. The blonde mage freezes, unable to respond to the sudden assault. Nearby, one of his teammates falls beneath consuming flames. Irene studies Bolvar's party and notices how greatly their numbers shrank. They must truly have fought Doom Prime during the earlier conflict. Looking behind them, the trio spots several terrified surviving mages. Under these circumstances, a temporary alliance might benefit everyone. A reckless boy charges, shouting, "6 enemies cannot make us retreat." He rockets forward like an arrow, ripping fiercely through their formation. Suddenly, his expression contorts as his body escapes his control. Flames swallow the reckless boy and erupt across the battlefield. Bolvar stares in terror at the astonishing power displayed before him. Lewin immediately recognizes this as the work of Doom Prime. Like thunder given flesh, Doom Prime charges through the battleground. Blue energy trails behind him as his sword sweeps forward. That blade tears through enemy bodies like an unstoppable wave. Seta notes that Doom Prime is indirectly helping their side. He could become another useful member of their temporary alliance. Lewin suspects Doom Prime intends to eliminate Bolvar's party first. After all, nearly every remaining survivor has gathered around them. Bolvar's companions panic, demanding why Doom Prime attacks only them. Knowing he must contribute, Lewin activates his temporal refraction ability. He flashes among the enemies like wind, delivering countless rapid strikes. Next, he gathers power into one extraordinary finishing punch. His fist crashes downward, producing an earthquake across the battlefield. When the shaking ends, Lewin surveys countless defeated adversaries ahead. Standing beyond their fallen bodies is the dreaded Doom Prime. Doom Prime walks directly past him without attempting a strike. Still, he addresses Lewin and promises to eliminate him personally later. Then Doom Prime resumes slaughtering every opponent who remains standing. Lewin exhales and watches him leave with a thoughtful expression. Far from the battlefield, the host room receives the latest results. The competition now officially has only 10 remaining participants. Strange eagerly awaits the outcome of Lewin's ambitious challenge. Lewin claimed he would prove himself superior to all 11 youngsters. A sly smile forms as a new question enters Strange's mind. Can Lewin defeat that arrogant punk when their inevitable clash finally arrives? After the tense battle, Lewin trains outside a snug little house. His group now occupies Base B near the island's central region. Only Bolvar and Hans remain standing after the previous confrontation. The opposing survivors disappear alongside Doom Prime once the fighting ends. A notification flashes announcing his long-awaited recurring mission completion. The front door creaks, and early-rising Irene steps into the morning air. She asks whether Lewin has been exercising outside since dawn. He says inactivity made his entire body restless and unbearably itchy. Seda has already cooked breakfast, so everyone can finally begin eating. Irene samples the meat, and astonishment immediately brightens her expression. The steak tastes incredible, proving Seda's culinary brilliance once again. Somehow the gifted cook always manages to surpass his previous meals. Irene apologizes for collapsing yesterday without offering any explanation. She had simply been far too exhausted to remain awake. While pouring tea, Lewin listens as she raises a lingering question. Irene asks what he intends to pursue after graduation. Their growing closeness has made her increasingly curious about his future. Competition mages eventually enter society through various mutually dependent careers. Some join Night Orders and dedicate themselves to defending assigned territories. Others become members of magic towers and continue developing their abilities. Profit-driven special groups also offer another familiar path for graduating mages. Those choices are ordinary, yet Lewin still wonders what he genuinely wants. Honestly, he admits that he has barely considered his future. Until last year, he was merely an impoverished student struggling to survive. Planning an entire career was impossible under those desperate circumstances. Perhaps the answer will emerge after the competition and his academy return. Lewin then asks Irene what kind of future she imagines. Unfortunately, the same question leaves her without any clear response. She never had enough time to choose what sort of mage to become. Instead, Irene simply followed whatever direction other people recommended. As she drinks her tea, Lewin quietly studies her troubled expression. Their conversation eventually leads Irene toward an important personal conclusion. With renewed certainty, she announces her desire to face Doom Prime first. That confrontation may provide the conviction needed to understand her own path. Lewin grows serious while considering her proposed battle against Doom Prime. For years, that rival has trapped Irene beneath an apparently unreachable summit. He respects her ambition and agrees to support the difficult challenge. After all, everyone carries a personal battle they must eventually confront. Night falls, spreading the moon's gentle light across the surrounding wilderness. With every passing moment, the enclosing barrier presses steadily inward. The group can no longer delay making its next move. Tonight, only the central village and Base B remain safely accessible. Yet Doom Prime could easily prepare an ambush inside either refuge. Waiting for another clash would leave them vulnerable to the shrinking boundary. Seda argues that charging directly forward offers their best solution. Irene disagrees, insisting they should avoid attracting attention for now. Then Lewin calmly reveals that he has already developed another plan. Only a handful of competitors remain, making every rank increase enormously valuable. Consequently, every survivor now advances with extreme caution and suspicion. Their trio previously used noise to lure enemies into dangerous confrontations. Repeating that trick now will not draw any remaining competitors toward them. Instead, this opening gives them their best chance against Doom Prime. Bolvar and Hans lost most companions and spent today hidden away. Doom Prime's overwhelming confidence practically guarantees his appearance very soon. Delaying their confrontation could also create severe problems as space disappears. Irene asks how they could possibly locate such an elusive opponent. Wearing a confident smirk, Lewin tells everyone to leave that problem to him. He promises that Doom Prime will come exactly where they need him. Lewin races through the forest with the speed of a cutting wind. Strange asks how the minimap alone could possibly reveal their target. Lewin explains that it displays each base's population, not precise positions. 2 visible dots could represent Bolvar and Hans or different survivors. A solitary dot, however, can only belong to Doom Prime. Following that deduction, Lewin reaches a secluded cabin deep within the forest. He approaches the closed entrance slowly, prepared for a violent response. Standing outside, Lewin loudly orders Doom Prime to reveal himself. A crimson blast erupts, reducing the wooden door to flying splinters. From the shattered entrance, a shadowy figure steps into view. Hatred burns red within Doom Prime's eyes as he glares forward. Lewin casually asks whether his furious opponent enjoyed a restful sleep. He then informs Doom Prime that they need to travel somewhere together. At their destination, Seda waits while barely suppressing his mounting anxiety. Seeing Lewin arrive beside their target only deepens his bewilderment. Seda anxiously asks whether Doom Prime somehow captured his returning friend. Lewin replies that he merely brought the dangerous man along voluntarily. Doom Prime asks why Lewin never attempted the expected surprise attack. Without hesitation, Lewin explains that an ambush was never part of his plan. Turning toward Doom Prime, he finally reveals the true reason behind everything. His opponent will not be Lewin, but Irene herself. Utterly baffled by this announcement, Seda can only stare at them. Doom Prime releases a weary sigh before answering the unexpected challenge. Folding his arms, he declares that Irene cannot possibly match him. Eliminating her now would also disappoint the Flame King watching her progress. She should survive longer, he argues, and continue raising her rank. Irene firmly responds that ranking higher is not her purpose here. Her immediate objective is defeating the rival who has always overshadowed her. At that declaration, Hans's memories concerning Irene begin quietly surfacing. Those memories show how anxious Irene becomes about losing to Doom Prime every year. Her family seems connected to that fear, but she avoids deeper questions. Somehow, she learns to withstand the pressure and trust her chosen path as a mage. Lewin watches his friend prepare her power for this decisive confrontation. Mana gathers around Irene while sweat exposes her visible apprehension. She finally releases a raging storm of ice toward Doom Prime. He braces defensively as the frozen assault races straight toward him. Its collision with the ground floods the entire area in piercing blue light. Irene's expression suddenly changes when she senses something terribly wrong. Doom Prime's counterspell surges outward like an abyss swallowing sunlight. The defensive dome fractures, then bursts into countless airborne fragments. Behind the shattered barrier, Doom Prime stands without a single visible injury. Despite escaping unharmed, he appears deeply irritated by Irene's attack. Tension intensifies, sending even more sweat streaming down her face. Worried, Seda asks Lewin whether abandoning their comrade here is truly acceptable. Lewin admits that the situation leaves him uneasy as well. Doom Prime readies a devastating sword strike and rushes forward at full strength. At the same time, he launches roaring flames directly toward Irene. She knows there is no possible way to evade both attacks. Breaking their arrangement, Lewin throws himself between Irene and the fire. He agreed she would attack first, not that Doom Prime could execute her. Sacrificing such a valuable comrade for victory would be unforgivably foolish. Lewin advances and calls, "Come have some fun with me." Doom Prime asks whether Lewin will fight alone or bring the muscle lump behind him. Seda bristles immediately at being addressed by such a ridiculous nickname. Lewin answers that he will handle this battle entirely by himself. Sending two fighters against Doom Prime would simply be excessive, he adds. His swordsmanship mentor once taught him the proper method for countering knights. A knight's legs form the foundation of everything he accomplishes in combat. They empower his blade and reveal where his next movement will lead. The secret is carefully tracking the position of an opponent's feet. Lewin fixes his attention firmly upon Doom Prime's balanced stance. Once the smallest opening appears, he instantly recognizes his chance. He slips beneath the incoming blade and cleanly avoids its path. The maneuver unfolds with brilliant timing and flawless physical execution. Then an unexpected attack catches him from an entirely different angle. Doom Prime's sword releases a broad scarlet spell that strikes Lewin directly. He reminds Lewin that he is both a knight and a mage. People insist magical swordsmen cannot exist because they have never encountered him. Without offering any breathing room, Doom Prime continues his merciless offensive. Lewin evades strike after strike while his relentless opponent keeps advancing. Even while retreating, he taunts Doom Prime and demands that he defend himself. This kind of enemy lies far beyond anything Lewin has previously faced. Against ordinary mages, he simply closes in and exploits their lengthy casting time. Doom Prime eliminates that weakness by turning his sword into a magical weapon. After countless evasions, Lewin finally plants both feet against the ground. Only then does he notice the unnoticed wound already carved into his leg. Doom Prime identifies the technique responsible as Radiant Impact. Its injury will steadily weaken Lewin's movement until paralysis overtakes him. Irene has already been immobilized through exactly the same cruel effect. Finishing his chilling explanation, Doom Prime prepares to conclude their fight. A gigantic pillar of violet light suddenly erupts upward from the earth. Elaborate magical patterns pulse across the surrounding ground beneath his feet. Two black wings tear from his back as the spectacular spell forms. Irene and Seda gasp, their terrified faces revealing their fear for Lewin. He recognizes the approaching power as an extraordinary 5-star spell. It is the dreaded and ruinous magic called Wings of the Demon. The resulting force feels like a hurricane tearing violently through the battlefield. Trees lash wildly beneath the punishing wind sweeping across the area. Irene braces herself firmly to avoid being hurled away. Seda fares worse and begins lifting into the furious current. Maintaining his casting posture, Doom Prime spreads catastrophic destruction around himself. Through sheer luck, Lewin takes shelter behind an enormous boulder. He understands why Doom Prime earned victory throughout the previous festivals. Using his teeth, Lewin tears a strip from his own sleeve. He binds the cloth around his leg as an improvised tourniquet. While securing the wound, an unusual glow catches his attention. The ring purchased from the antique shop is shining upon his finger. A vast crater of total devastation now encircles Doom Prime. Doom Prime once expected something impressive from Lewin, but now feels utterly disappointed. Emerging from cover, Lewin openly admits that his opponent is genuinely formidable. For one brief instant, Doom Prime resembles an immovable wall before him. With a sneer, Doom Prime asks whether Lewin intends to surrender. Giving up is impossible when so many people have placed their trust in him. Their faith strengthens his determination to break through this towering wall. Such unshakable resolve convinces Doom Prime that Lewin must be truly insane. He vows to teach Lewin a lesson and silence him permanently. Lewin acts first, unleashing the violent power of Ghoul's fury. Anger burns within his eyes as he roars at Doom Prime. Doom Prime, mind your words, Lewin shouts while launching himself forward. He streaks toward his opponent with the speed of lightning striking Earth. Doom Prime knows failure to evade the coming strike will mean Lewin's death. Even that deadly possibility cannot weaken Lewin's iron determination. The two attacks collide, with both fighters staking everything on victory. Lewin turns his ring into a weapon, betting its physical resistance will activate. Against every expectation, the ring blazes and snaps Doom Prime's sword in two. Broken steel sprays outward as a vicious gash opens across his shoulder. Shock freezes Doom Prime's face while Lewin bursts straight past him. His disbelief instantly curdles into a furious roaring scream. Seizing the opening, Lewin continues his combination with a low sweep. He sweeps his opponent's feet away and hammers him down. Holding him against the ground, Lewin leans close with a warning. Doom Prime, you cannot defeat me, he declares without hesitation. Your only strengths are conceit and certainty in your superiority. He gathers crushing force into one final punch. Doom Prime has no chance to answer the incoming blow. The fist crashes into his face with lightning-like speed. His body glitters briefly, then disappears from the arena through teleportation. Seda exhales in relief and admits the duel genuinely worried him. Had Lewin fallen, Seda knows he would have fought next. Lewin looks toward Irene and notices her lowered, shadowed expression. Sadness and frustration weigh upon her face as he approaches. He apologizes for stepping into the middle of her battle. Irene answers that the apology should come from her instead. Her selfish ambition nearly destroys the entire team's chances. Even so, she fails to accomplish her original competition objective. Irene tells him not to worry because that goal no longer exists. Doom Prime is no longer the person she intends to surpass. Her new target, she reveals, is Lewin himself. Smiling at her challenge, he warns that defeating him will be difficult. Irene returns his smile and says she already understands. Prepare yourself, because someday I will rise beyond you, she vows. 5 contestants remain, including Lewin, Irene, and Seda. The final rival pair battles fiercely, yet cannot overcome the 3 friends. Their violent clash lights the nighttime forest with spells and heavy blows. Smoke chokes the air as the relentless exchange continues around them. Eventually, both rivals collapse beneath the trio's combined assault. One fallen competitor starts shimmering, then teleports outside the arena. The 3 victors survey the battlefield as the contest's only survivors. Seda confesses he never dreamed events would end this way. Lewin asks whether they want to settle everything through one final fight. Irene declines, saying she would rather surrender right now. She is far from peak condition and prefers another opportunity. Understanding her exhaustion, Lewin agrees they can battle some other day. Seda steps forward and announces that his turn has arrived. Being team leader means nothing anymore, he declares boldly. Now, I will finally reveal everything my true power can do. Lewin plants himself firmly, preparing to launch his counterattack. In less than an instant, Seda is already hurtling through the air. The result crowns Lewin, Ignat's representative, as the first place winner. Later, Lewin gathers with 2 classmates around an extravagant victory feast. A familiar voice says they expected to find him there. His absence from the dormitory had immediately given away his location. Irene and Seda have arrived together to visit their victorious friend. She explains that she desperately wanted to congratulate Lewin personally. Seda, according to Irene, practically pleaded for permission to accompany her. Apparently, her cutting tongue is equally sharp outside the competition. After the punishing survival match, Lewin alone stands at the summit. Doom Prime earns many elimination points, yet fails to survive until completion. His final position tumbles sharply despite that impressive total. Irene and another competitor both finish even lower than Doom Prime. Jason feels euphoric while sharing a table with his inspiration Irene. He imagines his dream of approaching her may finally become attainable. Emboldened, he announces that everyone gets to drink beside the goddess. Irene cannot contain herself and suddenly bursts into laughter. Their happiness and lively enjoyment fill Lewin's heart with warmth. Everyone continues drinking and celebrating together until the sun sets. Nearby students whisper excitedly that Lewin is the new champion. Someone quickly silences them, warning that Doom Prime might overhear. Elsewhere, Doom Prime remains devastated and cannot accept his defeat. He had relaxed his guard, never expecting Lewin to target the sword. Rather than striking him, Lewin had deliberately attacked his weapon. Doom Prime recognized the plan instantly, but still swung desperately. He clung to the faint hope that his attack might prevail. Losing while the king watches feels utterly unforgivable to him. He asks his colleague whether the king has summoned him today. His companion tries calming him and recommends resting for a while. Doom Prime insists upon solitude, so the colleague respects his request. Left before his locker, Doom Prime only stares inside in silence. An eerie aura begins seeping steadily from his motionless body. A larger celebration now rages with excitement all around them. Everyone believes Lewin's triumph signals the rise of new magical talent. From above, Ignatz Dean quietly surveys the entire gathering. He expected his student to excel, but never imagined this accomplishment. For Strang, Lewin's victory lands as a painful wound against his pride. Facing that brat's smug expression inside the competition hall feels especially humiliating. Surprised by his reaction, the dean asks whether the hall is ready. The grand festival is already approaching its conclusion. 2 days have passed since the survival competition finished. Ignat ultimately holds a tie for third place. Such success seems miraculous for an academy once ridiculed as country bumpkins. Only the concluding individual event still remains ahead. Lewin radiates confidence with a satisfied smile resting across his face. The next trial combines an obstacle course, combat challenges, and swimming. Competitors may also summon beasts or rely on teleportation magic. Seda approaches Lewin and asks how he currently feels. All around them, spectators chant Lewin's name with deafening enthusiasm. Their attention makes him seem like the competition's central hero. Glancing back, he admits he cannot quite process this reception. Part of him desperately wants to enjoy the glorious moment. Yet Lewin refuses to celebrate until the final victor is confirmed. Blazing sunlight hangs above the city and fills the day with warmth. Today finally marks the beginning of the individual competition. Bald and resolute, Seda promises not to show his friend mercy. The judge raises his weapon and orders every competitor to prepare. Across the starting area, the strongest contenders focus with fierce intensity. The starting pistol cracks and the entire field surges into motion. Some competitors sprint forward, while others immediately summon their guardians. Several racers instead disappear ahead through carefully prepared teleportation spells. Thunderous cheers erupt from every section of the pack stands. A mustached spectator spots something strange and urgently points toward Lewin. Unlike everyone else, Lewin remains behind without making any attempt to run. He simply leans backward, wearing an extremely suspicious grin. Far ahead, clouds of dust rise behind the leading competitors. The struggle remains brutal, with everyone desperately fighting for position. Mikkel remarks that Irene must already be feeling exhausted. He proposes another temporary alliance, an arrangement he clearly enjoys making. Suddenly, pounding hoofbeats approach the pair rapidly from behind. Doom Prime charges toward them on horseback, carrying his new sword. Channeling magic through the blade, he burns through enemies blocking the route. Mikkel has known the swordsman for 6 years without earning his friendship. After all, Doom Prime has never once accepted an alliance. His horse's eyes reflect their rider's ferocious assault against the monsters. Goblins and other creatures fall effortlessly beneath his relentless attacks. Despite dominating the course, his thoughts remain fixed upon Lewin's absence. Perhaps Lewin is already ahead, though that possibility seems unbelievable. Doom Prime has led since the beginning and noticed only 2 nearby competitors. That makes it almost certain Lewin remains somewhere farther behind. Unable to suppress his curiosity, he finally asks Irene about Lewin. She has no answer, but the situation now feels deeply unusual. The mages have occupied the front lines for quite some time. Still, nobody from the rear has managed to appear near them. Even after delaying his start, Lewin should have caught them already. Instead, there is still no sign of him anywhere. A sudden explosion of noise draws Doom Prime's attention backward. Thick smoke rolls across the course, hiding everything within its swirling haze. Then Lewin emerges from the smoke and announces that he finally caught up. Doom Prime's eyes lock onto him immediately after his unexpected appearance. Concerned, Irene asks what happened to all the remaining participants. With a mocking smile, Lewin says none of them are around anymore. Until recently, his motionless behavior had left the spectators utterly bewildered, yet he has anticipated this exact day since entering the festival. This individual competition is the event he feels most confident about winning. As a close-range mage, exposing his back to distant enemies is dangerously reckless. Lewin consequently developed a strategy specifically suited to his fighting style. After extensive planning, he finally puts that ruthless strategy into practice. This solution involves removing every competitor individually by attacking from behind. With that objective, he begins creeping steadily toward his unsuspecting adversaries. As Lewin passes fallen competitors, he counts everyone he has defeated. Eventually, the growing number becomes too large for him to track. Each opponent is unprepared for the speed and skill of his ambushes. His systematic advance eventually brings him close to his friend Seda. Noticing Lewin approaching, Seda asks when he managed to arrive. Smiling faintly, Lewin asks whether Seda understands that games remain games. Seda wonders whether their seemingly endless clashes are about to restart. Offering an apology, Lewin suddenly launches himself directly at his friend. His powerful kick sends Seda's Iron Guardian hurtling high into the air. That single attack also removes Seda from the individual competition. Stunned by this revelation, Irene asks whether Lewin eliminated everyone else. He admits some competitors may still be struggling back into the race. For now though, Lewin senses no further intruders approaching their position. His steady gaze then meets Doom Prime's challenging stare. The swordsman firmly declares their next confrontation will end differently. Lewin continues advancing toward the small group of leading competitors. Doom Prime says he would gladly aim his sword at Lewin immediately, yet he reminds Lewin that other racers are still chasing them. A blazing aura shaped like a horse erupts around Doom Prime. Once the fiery guardian materializes, he quickly climbs onto its back. Hoping to face Lewin later, he races onward without the others. Bolvar asks whether Doom Prime intends to force his way through. That section of the course is packed with dangerous traps. Lewin silently watches his rival disappear ahead, his expression remaining neutral. The treasure castle is now riddled with traps throughout its interior. Any reckless movement there could leave a competitor severely injured. The safest approach requires carefully identifying and disabling each individual trap. Such work perfectly tests a mage's judgment and crisis management abilities. Unfortunately, neutralizing traps through proper methods consumes far too much time. Lewin considers copying another person's method and destroying instead of disarming. He could demolish every trap, but the castle's massive wall is another matter. Instead, he decides to strike its oldest sections. Using his player's vision, Lewin inspects every wall for weaknesses. After a long search, he finally identifies one vulnerable spot. A single brick there looks ancient and badly corroded. That flaw offers the perfect opening for his plan. Lewin drives a solid punch forward, intending to create a passage. Jason considers the attempt impossible, while Irene says it suits her friend. Jason admits he understands their closeness, but calls this excessive. While he criticizes Lewin's strategy, Irene shouts for him to look toward the wall. The struck section has cracked apart, opening a route straight through. Jason cries out in disbelief at the impossible-looking breach. Irene remains calm, having already expected Lewin to devise something. Now embarrassed, Jason asks whether he may use that route too. Smiling, Lewin refuses and gestures toward the wall he just shattered. The broken masonry rebuilds itself, sealing the path behind him. Jason remains stranded, desperate, and unable to pass through. Strang is stunned Lewin shattered such a wall with merely 2,400 strength. Only Lewin and Doom Prime now lead the remaining competitors. Lewin soon pulls alongside his rival. Doom Prime also escaped, though rushing left him struck by an arrow. Lewin sees that his rival is desperate to win the competition. Then Lewin's summoned horse begins running out of allotted time. In a straightforward race, Doom Prime could never match his speed. Furious, Doom Prime draws his sword and slashes toward Lewin. Lewin slips aside with ease, avoiding the sudden attack. He exploits the opening, lunging close and grabbing Doom Prime's clothes. Lewin declares they will complete the trial's final stretch together. Both racers topple over a cliff and plunge into the water below. Lewin breaks the surface, desperately gulping down fresh air. Everything has unfolded precisely according to his plan. Still, Doom Prime magically scaling the cliff would leave him disadvantaged. Lewin swims furiously away, but ice chunks emerge around him. The spreading ice comes directly from Doom Prime's magic. Lewin yells for Doom Prime to stop freezing the water. People will be swimming there, he warns through the freezing water. Soon, ice locks his entire body inside a rigid shell. Doom Prime approaches and asks whether competition leaves room for concern. With a mocking grin, he announces, "Time to get going." Unable to budge, Lewin remains imprisoned within the ice. He starts channeling fire magic to force himself free. The flames work and cracks slowly spread across the ice. Then the frozen surface bursts apart around him. Doom Prime already gallops toward victory aboard his horse. He stares in shock when Lewin catches him again. The finish line, Ignite Stadium, waits only a short distance ahead. No obstacles remain anywhere along the final approach. Lewin only needs to run with unbelievable speed now. He accelerates sharply, then launches himself high through the air. Descending toward Doom Prime, he asks whether they should hold a rematch. Given his current condition, Doom Prime knows accepting would be disastrous. Lewin crashes down thunderously, blasting a thick dust cloud upward. Spectators inside the stadium struggle to identify either leader. One sharp-eyed man notices something and shouts for everyone to look. A horse's silhouette emerges through the arena entrance. It is Doom Prime's battle guardian, charging powerfully forward. Everyone stiffens because neither mage has entered the arena yet. The giant screen instead shows Doom Prime collapsed, with Lewin standing nearby. Apparently, the trap-filled course pushed Doom Prime beyond his limits. He had said such concerns should not matter during competition. Now he lies helpless on the ground, unable to move. Lewin turns away from his defeated rival and continues onward. Echoing Doom Prime's own words, he declares, "Time to get going." The award ceremony begins, drawing everyone together inside the stadium. Lewin receives 2 awards covering the survival battle and triathlon. Those wins lock up the solo events and hand him first place overall. With that result, the Grand Festival finally reaches its conclusion. The packed crowd repeatedly chants Lewin's name throughout the stadium. Once dismissed as a failed student, he is hailed as the new generation's mage. Those roaring voices reach deeply into his heart. 6 years of suffering suddenly feel as though they were worthwhile. So does the loneliness he endured while trapped inside a dark cave. His relentless effort finally seems rewarded by the cheering crowd. From the podium, Lewin raises both arms and offers heartfelt thanks. He prays he will never lose their support again. Night falls as carriages arrive, carrying carefully selected nobles. Only members of the wealthiest families have received invitations. Every guest has come solely to see Lewin, their celebrated hero. For Lewin, though, the entire gathering feels painfully dull. He wants nothing more than returning to Ignite. A nearby voice interrupts, remarking how strange this situation seems. Irene stands there, elegant in a beautiful white gown. She finds it peculiar that nobody tries starting a conversation with him. Lewin blames his haughty manner and disappointingly uninspired banquet clothes. Irene agrees those factors may explain part of it, yet rumors suggest something else is also responsible. Irene begins. "Most nobles came here to make connections with you," Irene finishes, so their total silence seems bizarre. She has heard rumors that someone powerful already claimed his allegiance. That man's influence is supposedly enough to keep every noble away. Intrigued by this revelation, Lewin asks Irene who the person is. An elder interrupts, announcing that the banquet is about to begin. He orders all 32 representatives to follow him inside. The dining table overflows with countless rich and delicious dishes. Dinner with the Fire King resembles a feast prepared for an emperor, yet this lavish banquet secretly serves as a broad student assessment. For poor performers, the evaluation feels more like an executioner's blade. Looking around, Lewin notices several empty chairs near the table. He expected only the Fire King to join their dinner. Instead, 2 prominent seats await honored guests at the head. The organizer soon appears and announces that both guests are approaching. Everyone stands immediately, showing respect for the arriving dignitaries. The Fire King enters first, prompting deep bows throughout the room. People address him as the Lord of Flames, which disgusts Lewin. An elegant stranger accompanying him casually disregards those lofty honorifics. He only worries that his arrival may have interrupted dinner needlessly. The elegant stranger wears flawless formal clothing and a refined hat. Lewin quietly wonders about the identity of this impeccably dressed man. His thoughts halt when everyone nearby bows deeply to the Crown Prince. The shocking revelation leaves Lewin staring at him in disbelief. Once everyone sits, the atmosphere around the table becomes increasingly strained. The students look uncomfortable, uncertain about their expected behavior. Lewin likewise says nothing and silently watches the honored guests. Breaking the silence, the Fire King mentions the 11 students' failures. Not one of them managed to defeat Lewin even once. He questions whether the difference between their abilities is truly enormous. Calling them his children now feels deeply disappointing and even shameful. Doom Prime lowers his head and his voice shakes with humiliation. He swears that nobody will ever witness his weakness again. Second place, he bitterly insists, is merely an illusion born from incompetence. That festival only proves dragons can emerge from the smallest streams. The entire exchange creates an almost unbearable sense of discomfort. It seems this dinner exists solely to disgrace those 11 young students. Yet the Fire King is not Lewin's only source of unease. Since arriving, the Crown Prince has watched him with unsettling intensity. He slowly drinks wine without taking his fierce gaze off Lewin. Despite being the third son, the prince has surpassed his older brothers. His brilliant intellect and extraordinary political cunning became formidable weapons. Mastery of both scholarship and combat makes him nearly flawless. Irene's earlier words suddenly echo inside Lewin's troubled mind. He suspects this prince is the powerful figure keeping nobles away. The Fire King asks how victory at the festival feels. Recognizing the question's hidden danger, Lewin swallows before answering carefully. He finally admits that the entire situation makes him uncomfortable. That blunt response visibly catches the Fire King by surprise. Lewin explains that he remains pleased with his own festival performance. Still, he resents being used to belittle everyone else's efforts. His answer sends a noticeable ripple through the gathered students. The table's mood changes sharply, along with the Fire King's expression. The ruler argues that inferiority can sometimes become valuable fuel for growth. Lewin instead hears an attempt to provoke hostility among the participants. Such calculated division directly contradicts the explanation he just received. Besides, Lewin insists that he never came from some insignificant stream. Ardell is his beautiful homeland and nobody should diminish it. Nor should anyone insult Ignat by reducing it to something insignificant. His defiance seems to kindle a strange excitement within the Fire King. A suffocating silence settles heavily across the entire dinner table. The Crown Prince smirks mischievously, then suddenly erupts into roaring laughter. His loud reaction only increases the tension twisting inside Lewin. Lewin remarks that the Crown Prince seems like a serious handful. The Fire King confirms he already warned him how fascinating Lewin was. Laughing until his stomach hurts, the prince wonders where Lewin originated. The ruler admits he expected some obscure and unremarkable little territory. Now Ardell sounds beautiful enough that he wants to explore it. Irene releases a relieved breath as the dangerous provocation passes smoothly. She asks whether Lewin intends to surprise everyone yet again. He gives her nothing more than a simple reply. The Crown Prince acknowledges that Lewin delivered an excellent victory speech. Still, repeated exposure to the Dean's ideals likely will not change him. Even so, Lewin's words sound fresher than anything the Dean offers. The Fire King also appears unmistakably eager to witness the future. With that settled, he formally declares the lavish banquet concluded. Nobody moves because the Crown Prince immediately asks everyone to wait. Rising from his seat, he walks directly toward Lewin. The prince invites him to share tea somewhere more private. Wearing an unsettling grin, he warns that refusal is not permitted. Later, Lewin sits beside the enigmatic prince inside a lavish room. He knows this meeting involves far more than congratulations for winning. The Crown Prince speaks Lewin's name, abruptly cutting through his thoughts. He commands Lewin to begin working for him from this day onward. Once again, the prince declares that he will accept no refusal. Lewin receives exactly 1 month to prepare for the coming changes. After that month, the Crown Prince says, Lewin's school transfer comes next. Every necessary arrangement follows, including a residence for Lewin. The prince also expects him to pursue imperial citizenship. After all, his closest associate cannot reasonably remain a foreigner. Lewin questions why the empire needs him with Doom Prime available. The prince sharply reminds him that he ultimately lost. Why should I choose someone who already lost? He scoffs. He then gives Lewin 2 rules for speaking with him. First, the prince prefers hearing a simple yes instead of questions. That chilling preference sends a shiver down Lewin's spine. Even so, the prince decides to answer his question. His godfather's personal recommendation provides the first reason. The prince also admires Lewin's astonishing courage and shameless confidence. Everyone else desperately flatters powerful people, but Lewin acts differently. He even confronts the prince's godfather and openly voices disagreements. Most audaciously, he continues questioning the prince despite receiving warnings. Politics sometimes requires keeping an interesting person close at hand. The prince wants protection from his damned older brothers. They cannot accept their youngest sibling becoming the crown prince. A heavy lump forms in Lewin's throat as he swallows. The prince asks whether he truly remains unwilling to accept. Lewin notes this, explains why refusal was forbidden from the beginning. The Empire's highest authority is offering an unmatched position beside him. Most mages eventually place their talents behind influential political figures. Passing up this opportunity could leave Lewin burdened with regret. Regardless, he refuses to become a mage belonging to anyone. Too many personal ambitions still remain unfinished in his heart. The prince expected a realist, yet discovers a genuine idealist. Such an opportunity is extraordinarily rare, but Lewin still refuses. Perhaps, Lewin answers without changing his decision. As he rises, the prince orders him to forget their conversation. People currently call Lewin the festival's most brilliant jewel. Collecting precious jewels happens to be the prince's favorite pastime. Until now, not one desired jewel has escaped his possession. Anything he cannot obtain simply ends up shattered instead. Lewin barely reacts and begins withdrawing from the private meeting. He turns his back upon one of the Empire's mightiest figures. Later, Lewin leans against a pillar, silently sorting his thoughts. Those final words were unmistakably a threat against him. Unease makes him question whether refusing was truly the correct choice. 2 friends soon arrive and greet their distracted companion. Jason asks why he vanished, teasing him about a secret date. Inside a luxurious room, the prince considers his godfather's recommendation. Lewin's unusual character continues provoking intense curiosity within him. Ultimately, their entire conversation produced no useful result. Not even a direct threat managed to sway Lewin. The quiet aide asks whether the prince intends to surrender. He firmly declares that giving up is absolutely impossible. His godfather should understand his powerful desire to collect things. In the end, Lewin will still belong beside him. The prince has already settled the matter within his mind. Sunset finds Lewin continuing his usual physical training routine. Through raw determination, he completes today's assigned mission once again. Exhausted but delighted, he collapses across the cool grass. Strange remarks that his body improves noticeably with every passing day. Lewin says he dislikes hearing such praise from a man. The little bear indignantly fires back that she is a woman. Startled, he sits upright and questions how incarnations possess genders. Strange simply explains that she was born that way. Nothing suggests incarnations should lack genders in the first place. Besides, Lewin never bothered asking her about it until now. The pair later shower together despite Strange's dismissive teasing. She claims there is hardly anything worth seeing anyway. Naturally, that admission means she has inspected somewhere forbidden. Lewin's anger soon twists into a small, dangerous smirk. Rising, he declares that he will head out first. He also banishes the little bear forever for making that joke. At the station, students steadily board the waiting locomotive. Jason gives Lewin an excessively heartfelt farewell beside the platform. Lewin rejects the dramatics, reminding him that nobody is dying. The iron train exhales smoke while signaling its imminent departure. Standing behind, Lewin quietly watches his friends leave without him. A trench-coated, bowl-cut mage approaches and suggests they depart too. Winning the festival requires Lewin to fulfill obligations in Seoul. The bowl-cut mage introduces himself as Street Cat, Lewin's assigned bodyguard. His level prevents Lewin's player's gaze from revealing any information. That places him alongside Ignat's professors, or perhaps even higher. Street Cat explains that the palace visit must happen first. There, Lewin will formally receive congratulations for winning the festival. His peculiar speaking style prompts Lewin to request more comfortable language. After all, Lewin points out that he is only 16. Street Cat fires back immediately, beginning a pointed response about himself. The cat-like mage insists his current manner already feels perfectly comfortable. Lewin judges him genuinely meticulous and thoroughly professional. After the palace, Lewin must visit the magic tower for artifact selection. He might receive nothing because the artifact alone chooses its recipient. This makes him wonder whether it thinks like the ancient ogre. Then comes his official mission assignment. Regular students never receive missions, but champions earn this special exception. Lewin sees the whole process as a coming-of-age ceremony. He may choose his preferred mission from several very different tasks. Strange approaches quietly and murmurs something directly into his ear. Guided by her message, he scans the options and selects one. Sometime later, a magnificent castle crowns a mountain peak. It is the prince's palace, where everyone eagerly awaits Lewin's arrival. The cat-like mage announces his departure and casually says goodbye. Lewin asks whether he truly will not come along. The answer becomes irrelevant as enormous palace doors start opening. The ambitious prince already stands beyond them, awaiting Lewin personally. Hands planted on his hips, he welcomes Lewin into his empire. Lewin can only stare, momentarily robbed of words. As his first reward, the monarch gives him exactly 10,000 won. The prince has not abandoned his offer and promises perpetual access. Afterward, Lewin proceeds toward his next official duty. Merely crossing the immense palace corridors leaves him exhausted. The cat-like mage barely hears his chatter, saying the bowl-cut mage awaits. This confirms the palace staff truly possess no sense of humor. The bowl-cut mage asks whether Lewin has really chosen that mission. Fearless, Lewin answers, "My decision is final." The mage immediately recognizes that he selected the hardest assignment available. Heavy doors leading into the next chamber swing apart. A solitary figure waits for Lewin at the far end. The Flame King welcomes Lewin warmly inside. After serving tea, he questions choosing exploration over easier subjugation. That easier route only requires joining the Imperial Guards. Lewin could crush several bandits and return celebrated as a hero. Yet the Flame King cannot understand his attraction toward that abandoned place. Lewin recalls the advice Strang whispered earlier. Her advice identifies this mission as ideal because of the ancient ogre. That forsaken territory was once the ancient ogre's homeland. Another detail makes the location even more important. Doom Prime lived there for an entire 100 years. The skybound mountain north of Seoul once housed the ancient ogres. Except for the ancient ogre, everyone died during the Great War. No ogres now inhabit that ruined territory. Its exploration mission ranks hardest because an impassable barrier seals it. No mage or scholar has ever discovered a way through it. The Flame King wonders why Lewin finds this particular task appealing. Perhaps the theory about an ogre god's fury creating a sanctuary intrigues him. Other people possess no convincing reason to visit such emptiness. For Lewin, Doom Prime's 100-year residence provides reason enough. He sees no reason to disclose that secret to the Flame King. Instead, Lewin claims the mission interests him because it is hardest. The Flame King recommends another mission, citing the barrier's overwhelming complexity. A challenging gleam appears as Lewin questions that warning. Would a 16-year-old student breaching it not seem incredibly impressive? The Flame King warns he could become the first champion failing this mission. Still unconvinced, he asks why Lewin thinks he received the prince's recommendation. The king wants Lewin remaining in Seoul under constant observation. Hearing that admission sends cold sweat across Lewin's skin. The Flame King suspects Lewin's unusual ability influenced his mission choice. Regardless of the truth, he promises to watch Lewin closely. Inside his chambers, Lewin asks Strang whether their goal remains achievable. Their destination has suffered damage for many long years. After everything they're endured, useful discoveries remain far from guaranteed. Strang says human methods have never uncovered anything within that place. Yet Lewin possesses powers extending far beyond an ordinary human's limits. A knock interrupts them, and a voice identifies the caller as Jason. Lewin grants entry, and two guards step through the doorway. They are the cat-like mage and a broad boar mage. Strange finds their animal-themed titles decidedly strange. They explain the Flame King personally favors such eccentric naming. Every mage serving him receives a similarly peculiar moniker. Wearing a friendly grin, the boar mage approaches Lewin. He asks whether they can visit the artifact chamber for Lewin's final reward. The tower's artifact vault is divided into C, B, A, and X. Area C stores the common artifacts, while X protects the rarest treasures. Lewin receives permission to search every section through Area A. Area X remains closed even to the Emperor without a special event. He wonders what sort of event could unlock that final section. Following his guides, Lewin starts combing through Section 100. Only superior items are stored here, and a magic sword appears quickly. Even Section 100's collection proves astonishingly rich for the tower. He discovers a famous volume kept inside this room for over a century. Next, he finds a book about crossing the barriers of C-class. Another volume chronicles unknown lands and the search for ancient creatures. Lewin asks whether tower residents may freely read every available book. The cat mage explains that access depends entirely upon the master's permission. Section B resembles a treasury of knowledge packed with every kind of book. Yet inside Section A, not one artifact responds to Lewin. Curious, he asks whether artifacts commonly reject every visiting wizard. The Boar says it happens, although such cases are extraordinarily rare. Admission into Section A already indicates someone can attract an artifact's notice. Being refused by every single treasure naturally leaves Lewin feeling deeply discouraged. Strange folds his arms and dismisses everything around them as worthless rubbish. Humans may treasure these objects, but the finest prize is absent. That treasure waits behind the enormous door indicated by the bear guard. It leads into mysterious Section 10, which almost nobody can enter. Strange detects the scent of at least one artifact crafted by dragons. Still, Lewin lacks permission and must choose something from the accessible room. Suddenly, fierce green radiance bursts from Section 10's door and floods everything. Both accompanying guards recoil visibly, their faces tightening with unmistakable fear. The boar guard shouts that the special event has returned after 56 years. Inside the king's chamber, he asks whether his tooth truly answered Lewin. The cat mage bows his head and confirms that it did. This proves Lewin possesses sufficient talent to eventually inherit the throne. Section 10 safeguards 3 objects whose power has no equal. They consist of a staff, protective armor, and a single tooth. Each grants its owner the means to remain at the absolute summit. The staff endlessly multiplies magical power and symbolizes the ruler of mages. 56 years earlier, that very staff selected the current king. Every previous chosen wielder eventually claimed the tower's highest position. The armor resists every physical strike and spell without suffering damage. It selects a new owner only once during each century. Every warrior chosen by it later becomes a knight of legend. The molar once belonged to the very first chieftain of the ogres. Unlike the others, it has accepted nobody for several hundred years. Its decision means Lewin can truly gain enough power to reach the throne. Lewin raises the enormous tooth with almost unbelievable ease. 6 grown men can barely transport it, even while straining together. The display suggests he may personally possess the raw strength of an ogre. Several troubling connections begin racing through the king's mind. He considers Lewin's ogre-like might and selection for the Western Mountain mission. The ancient molar's undeniable acceptance of Lewin completes his grave conclusion. Urgently, the king orders an attendant to summon someone immediately. With a firm voice and grim expression, he demands the Scream Mage. Lewin chooses to travel west toward the mountain, touching the sky. He receives exactly 1 month to successfully complete his assignment. The tower provides every supply needed for the long journey ahead. While he packs his belongings, the cat mage watches him with intense focus. Noticing the stare, Lewin asks whether anything else remains unsaid. The cat mage answers that the truth is simultaneously yes and no. Tower rules forbid its mages from expressing their own personal opinions. In that sense, he insists there is nothing more to add. As a veteran, though, he still possesses one crucial piece of advice. The tower treats controlled mages generously, but shows outsiders merciless cruelty. He warns Lewin to remain extremely cautious and question absolutely everything. Lewin listens closely and commits the veteran's warning to heart. An ancient fortress stands within the city nearest the western mountain. It was constructed specifically to protect the region from invading ogres. Its walls exceed the capital's height, while armored soldiers provide formidable strength. Books taught Lewin these impressive facts, yet reality looks painfully different. Now the city lies desolate after losing its original defensive purpose. The ogre threat has vanished, leaving those once mighty defenses unnecessary. Former soldiers have become daylight drunks, openly wasting themselves on alcohol. A hulking man approaches Lewin and demands every possession he carries. Lewin merely rests one hand upon the hulking man's shoulder. That single touch incapacitates the hulking man, and Lewin keeps walking. He reflects on how sharply this place contradicts everything described in books. Farther ahead, a sleeping man snores loudly without stirring. Lewin approaches the sleeping man, regarding him with open disdain. After requesting permission, he rouses the sleeping man from his nap. The sleeping man immediately apologizes for carelessly dozing off. Lewin says it is fine, then starts asking where he can... Lewin asks the sleeping man where he can obtain a horse. Scratching his neck, the man carefully considers how to respond. He honestly admits that no horses are currently available. Worse, this happens to be Seoul's only stable. Strange laughs openly, calling the entire establishment hopelessly pathetic. Usually only flies visit this place, with customers rarely appearing. Today though, crowds kept arriving until every horse was rented. Lewin asks the man to pause and reconsider his explanation. The stable remained deserted until today's sudden flood of renters. Others apparently needed horses in Seoul, where practically nobody visits. Such unusual timing feels far too precise for mere coincidence. He soon recalls the warning previously given by the street cat. Strang also sensed something unsettling aboard the mana train. Glancing behind himself, Lewin understands that caution is now essential. Someone has been secretly tracking his movements this entire time. Once certain about the pursuit, he takes immediate countermeasures. A generous payment in won buys the sleeping man's cooperation. The man must report anyone who comes asking about Lewin. Lewin then wanders through Seoul, deliberately presenting himself as bait. His pursuers plainly serve the empire and possess considerable resources. Either the Crown Prince or Blazing King could be responsible. Both have separate reasons for closely monitoring his every move. An encounter with either powerful figure would bring serious trouble. Lewin must settle this issue before traveling towards Sky Mountain. Since he has spotted their trap, continued pursuit is unacceptable. Back at the stable, the sleeping man reports no inquiries. He remained vigilant throughout Lewin's absence, yet nobody ever appeared. Judging by his behavior, the man does not seem dishonest. Still, he confesses that something deeply unusual happened during that period. Approximately 3 minutes have vanished entirely from his memory. No amount of concentration helps him recover those missing moments. Advanced mental magic can seize control of another person's consciousness. Victims afterward forget everything occurring while that control remained active. If someone searched his memories, Lewin's discovery is already exposed. Entering his room cautiously, Lewin finds a note upon the bed. Its writer claims to harbor no intention of hurting him. The message urges him to abandon searching and complete his mission. Rage surges through Lewin as he reads those arrogant instructions. They invaded his room, then casually ordered him not to worry. Furious, he challenges his pursuers to attack with everything available. Lewin charges outside, vaulting through the window onto nearby rooftops. He races smoothly across buildings with quick, skillful leaps. Eventually, he reaches his chosen location and drops onto the ground. Strang asks what Lewin intends to accomplish with this chase. He answers that finding those watchers is his immediate goal. Opening his minimap, Lewin identifies several hostile red markers. He plans to test whether those marked enemies follow him. After all, Lewin once claimed first place in the triathlon. Among several hooded figures, a flaming skull asks about pursuing him. One figure remarks that their junior clearly wants to play. Refusing such an invitation would apparently be difficult for them. Their leader orders everyone forward while strictly forbidding Lewin's death. The hooded figures race after him through Seoul's winding streets. 3 hooded mages eventually land and admit losing Lewin's trail. They deliver this troubling report directly to their loud leader. One mage counters that Lewin is actually waiting nearby. A sudden scraping noise rises from behind several stacked crates. Lewin erupts from hiding and charges straight toward the hooded group. Without hesitating, he drives his fist squarely into one mage's face. Turning toward another target, he immediately prepares his next strike. The injured mage screams while forming a magical barrier between them. That defensive wall accomplishes absolutely nothing against Lewin's strength. His second punch drops another mage unconscious onto the ground. Only one member of the 3 pursuers remains standing. The mustached mage erupts into wild, almost delighted laughter. He had wondered what sort of person Lewin might be. Never had he expected the young man to be monstrous. Lewin studies him carefully, questioning these mysterious pursuers' true identities. The mustached mage claims the Tower Master assigned them as protection. From Lewin's perspective, their supposed protection looks exactly like surveillance. Regardless, the mage thoroughly enjoyed witnessing Lewin's remarkable combat ability. He tears a sheet of paper and instantly disappears. A skeletal tattoo upon his neck identifies him as an evil mage. Those mages belong to a secretive organization handling unsavory assignments. Only their identifying tattoo and the organization's name are widely known. Their operations, overall strength, and leader remain entirely shrouded in mystery. Strange asks how Lewin feels after confronting those strange mages. He answers that defeating them was surprisingly easy. They seemed weaker than the student representatives from the festival, yet one technique displayed during the confrontation remains unexplained. The mustached mage used 6th class magic, making him seriously dangerous. Lewin decides that maintaining constant vigilance would be the safest choice. Strange asks what his partner intends to do next. He answers that he will make it appear before him. The following day, Lewin immediately departs towards Sky Mountain. His route crosses arid terrain, utterly stripped of living creatures. Even so, he senses that his destination is drawing nearer. Eventually, Lewin stops along the barren path without taking another step. His power circle begins trembling, confirming the journey's end. Worn down by the long trek, Lewin knows he has arrived. A strange barrier encloses the mountain where the dragon once lived, yet the wall remains rigid, leaving him unsure how to enter. Strange previously claimed only non-human abilities could cross this barrier. Lewin still cannot grasp what those mysterious words actually mean. Were Strange human, she would surely attempt smashing through it. Force is useless though, because this barrier cannot be broken physically. The bear asks whether ogre methods might somehow breach it instead. Lewin considers calling the ogres within, like summoning helpful friends. Together, they finally begin narrowing the puzzle toward an answer. One troublesome question immediately threatens their emerging conclusion. Supposedly, every ogre living upon this mountain has already been slaughtered. Strain counters that such certainty merely reflects a very human assumption. Growing suspicious, Lewin faces the barrier with visible unease. She reminds him his gift never bends meekly before inherited prejudice. Instead, his ability discovers paths that demolish those limiting beliefs. Lewin presses one palm against the strange, unyielding surface. He asks the barrier to listen because he carries a dead chief's tooth. If it hears him, he requests that it open a passage. Both companions wait, but the wall remains perfectly motionless. Then an eerie radiance gathers directly underneath his resting palm. Brilliant violet energy surges across the barrier with startling force. Its pressure even drives Lewin several steps backward. Watching from concealment, the mustachioed man witnesses something deeply alarming. Lewin has actually pierced the barrier no challenger ever overcame. Somehow, that unassuming youngster accomplishes the previously impossible mission. The mustachioed man approaches, hoping to follow through the opening. Unfortunately for him, the breach has already sealed itself shut. Without warning, a fist bursts outward and smashes beneath his chin. Lewin has caught him and refuses another escape like last time. He punches the ground, unleashing a quake beneath his pursuer. The violent shaking sends the mustachioed man sprawling without any defense. Lewin follows by casting a spell that binds his enemy tightly. Magical restraints leave the wicked mage immobilized from head to toe. The captive expected to approach Lewin safely, but entered his trap. Their drawn-out hunt has finally reached its decisive conclusion. A dark silhouette suddenly vaults above Lewin's head. A mighty ogre dives toward the restrained mage, wielding an enormous club. Its merciless strike crushes the helpless prisoner beneath that massive weapon. The brutal sight leaves Lewin shocked and speechless. Turning toward him, the ogre harshly demands his identity. Strange warns that these creatures possess the instincts of wild beasts. Though Lewin enters the mountain, everything inside feels like another world. Several ogres observe him while sniffing curiously at the unfamiliar visitor. They remark that his scent does not resemble a human's. Strange urges her master to remain constantly vigilant. Human morality carries no meaning whatsoever among these creatures. So far, the ogres have avoided attacking Lewin. The dead chief's tooth likely explains their present restraint. Still, neither companion can predict what the creatures might do next. Maintaining caution, Lewin keeps moving closer to their gathering. Eventually, he and Strang reach the mountain's highest summit. Lewin asks whether yet another mountain remains for them to climb. The gigantic mass looming before him suddenly starts shifting. What resembles a mountain is actually an unimaginably colossal ogre. This enormous figure leads the ogres currently surrounding Lewin. He has heard the human carries the departed chief's relic. The chief towers many times above every other ogre present. Speaking politely, he promises to accept Lewin as a guest. He also declares they will not hurl him toward the eagles. Lewin answers that the deceased chief's tooth personally selected him. Disbelief grips the ogre since no human should wield that object. Lewin offers to demonstrate its choice before the chief's own eyes. Intrigued, the chief calls him a remarkably interesting human. He detected Lewin's scent long before the visitor reached this summit. Alongside that scent, he sensed an immense aura of physical strength. His judgment is accurate, because Lewin truly possesses extraordinary power. The curious chief demands to know exactly who stands before him. Lewin glances toward his bear companion before giving any answer. First, he asks whether the chief knows the mountain's resident dragon. Surprise crosses the chief's face upon hearing that forgotten identity. He demands to know how Lewin learned about the dragon. Lewin says the mountain's former chief revealed it to him. Astonished, the giant ogre asks whether his predecessor remains alive. Lewin explains that the former chief survives within an artifact. That artifact currently resides at Ignat and serves among his teachers. Then Lewin asks whether the chief still wonders about his identity. He describes himself as a friend of the mountain's former ruler. That same predecessor once held authority over every ogre here. Furthermore, the late chief's tooth has acknowledged Lewin as its chosen bearer. He is also the human inheriting the world-destroying dragon's powers. Finally, he introduces himself clearly as Lewin Ardell. Lewin stares fearlessly down at the gigantic ogre chief. Boldly, he asks whether this knowledge changes the threatened eagle toss. Even after hearing everything, does the chief still intend it? A friendly smile spreads across the ogre's imposing face. He answers no, offering Lewin an unexpectedly reassuring response. Instead, the ogres promise to welcome the young man wholeheartedly. Their gentleness leaves Lewin stunned and briefly speechless. The chief promised hospitality, yet visitors must still complete an ogre trial. To earn full acceptance, Lewin must first demonstrate his worth. His little bear companion Strang reveals this trial is arm wrestling. His challenger is the Iron Handler, son of the ogre patriarch. Lewin suspects an error and stares at the enormous opponent in confusion. The contest nears, and spectators demand the Iron Handler crush the tiny human. Uneasy, Lewin asks whether defeat means getting thrown to the eagles. Strange cannot tell him whether that punishment still applies. Both opponents lock gazes across the table with fierce concentration. The ogre's colossal physique certainly presents a terrifying spectacle. Yet Lewin has not entered this contest without a hidden advantage. His artifact grants him strength far beyond any ordinary human. Since obtaining the primordial beast's tooth, he has gained 1,000 points. That enormous increase brings his current strength to exactly 3,520 points. The Iron Handler notices that Lewin's hand seems highly unusual. Even so, he intends to use every ounce of strength. Lewin answers his resolve with a defiant smirk and vicious challenge. "Try killing me outright and ending this," he taunts. The ogre referee begins counting down for the competitors. A thunderous bellow then announces the beginning of their match. Lewin strains so violently that his shirt sleeve starts tearing. The sight shocks his opponent, whose eyes widen with disbelief. Yet their arms remain frozen at the table's center. Sweat soaks Lewin as he pushes himself beyond every limit. Desperation drives him into one final explosive surge. Still, even that last reserve of power proves insufficient. The Iron Handler swiftly slams him down in an embarrassingly abrupt defeat. The victor raises both arms and proudly celebrates his triumph. Lewin drops onto the ground, murmuring that he gave everything. His aching hand trembles as he anticipates the eagle's punishment. Instead, a booming ogre voice commands him to stand. The Iron Handler praises his incredible endurance and calls him astonishing. Such courage seems almost impossible for a human to possess. By accepting the challenge, Lewin earns the mountain sanctuary's profound respect. Strange personally congratulates him for accomplishing something so remarkable. He learns a famed challenger needed 17 years to defeat the Iron Handler. Lewin promptly vows to accomplish the same feat within 1 month. The contest ends and a magnificent feast immediately begins. Lewin finds that the ogres possess surprisingly impressive cooking skills. Their peaceful lives make him question why they remain confined here. Yet a strange premonition quietly begins stirring inside him. He senses something more important than his original mission awaits him. The Iron Handler approaches Lewin slowly during the gathering. He asks what Lewin intends to do with the acquired tooth. If desired, he can forge it into a human-compatible weapon. Countless possibilities flood Lewin's mind as the offer astonishes him. His memory returns to the mysterious door marked X. Burning with curiosity, he once gripped the tooth and questioned its nature. Strange explained that it embodied the primordial source of raw power. Lewin cared less about its origin than its practical use. Other artifacts like the ancient staff and protective armor have obvious purposes. The tooth, for instance, could become the striking head of a mace. For now, carrying it provides an enormous strength advantage by itself. The present offer could finally transform the artifact into an actual weapon. Lewin has carried it without understanding how to harness its power. The material itself is extraordinarily heavy and almost impossibly hard. Most people could never hope to handle or shape it.